Welcome to the Boxing Gossip Podcast, edition number 78. Happy Wednesday, everyone. We do this every Wednesday at 8:30. Let's start by addressing the matchroom elephant in the room. We know that we're clashing with the Sky Sports matchroom boxing tonight, but we decided that the card wasn't overly of interest to any of the guys on the panel, so we decided to press ahead and do the podcast. And to be honest, the Jake Bohr fight, which was probably the more interesting fight on the bill, has already finished. So if you are tuning in live, I think you've chosen the right place. But then again, I would say that. If you're watching live, please hit the thumbs up button nice and early. That will help get a bit more visibility to this and mean we get a wider audience. If you're watching this after it's gone up, please do the same. Many thanks for joining us live. We've got Jet and Irish Tom on the panel. Oh, I can actually see Paul has just joined us as well. Unfortunately, do not think Jay is going to be able to attend tonight. So we've got an action-packed show. We're going to start by talking about last week's boxing, which is obviously including Lomachenko, Rigondeaux, the James DeGale card, the Lee Selby card. We're then going to move on to some of the news stories in sports. We're going to touch on the return of Tyson Fury, the Hughie Fury and Dillian White call out, Kell Brook's return, and then we'll press ahead to start talking about next week's action, including Billy Joe Saunders versus David Lemieux. Now, a lot of people very much looking forward to this week's podcast. This was the podcast where Irish Tom warned us that most of us probably wouldn't even turn up to the podcast and we'd be getting called out. You know, this was the podcast where we'd have seen there wasn't that big a size difference between Lomachenko and Rigondeaux. We'd have seen that Rigondeaux had long arms. We'd have seen that Rigondeaux was the puncher out of the two guys in the ring. Sadly, it wasn't to be. But fair play to Tom. He's turned up. He's going to take his licks, and he's on the panel. Let's start by bringing in Jet. Jet, how you doing?
Not so bad. Yourself?
Living the dream, mate. Living the dream. Let's start with Lomachenko Rigondeaux, mate. Maybe let's go around the panel on that fight, and then we'll come back to Degale in half an hour or so. Give us your sort of initial post-fight thoughts following Lomachenko Rigondeaux.
Yeah, not really. Not really much to say, to be honest. Lomachenko just basically dominated the fight. Rigondeaux, the size difference was completely evident there, and he just seemed to every time he seemed to be stepping into range, it was just Lomachenko. I don't know what he was doing. He was just throwing out the jab, but he was tripling, quadrupling the jab, taking a maybe half step back, maybe just moving, feinting with the upper body. He looked a different gravy in there, to be honest. And Rigondeaux, we know as an elite counterpuncher. He negated all and any of Rigondeaux's counterpunching, Lomachenko, that is. And yeah, the fight played out, I wouldn't say as many predicted, but, he just made it look like easy work in there. I know Rigondeaux hurt his hand in the second or third round, if I'm correct, which he said, and that's why, obviously, he quit on a stool. But, yeah, I just think the size difference was just completely evident. And, it was hard for him to kind of bridge that gap, even with the long arms, as Irish Tom likes to call them.
Jet, last week on the podcast, I mooted the idea that Rigondeaux could well have got old overnight and that he'd been fighting such a low level of opposition since 2013 that the fact he got old may not have been exposed, but perhaps he's been declining for 4 or 5 years, and due to low level of opposition and inactivity, we haven't seen it. Do you think that's a potential factor with the benefit of hindsight?
Yeah, it depends the way you look at it, to be honest. I wouldn't say he's been declining over the last few years. He's definitely got older, but I don't think he's been in those fights where they've been a complete war. I know he got knocked down a few times, obviously Amagasa, I think Nito Danair, sorry, and, a couple of other fights, but he was never in like a full-blown war, like a James DeGale versus Badu Jack war or something like that. Obviously, we'll come to that later, but he's had some sort of longevity to get to wherever he is in the sport. Obviously, he was a world champion at his weight class, and yeah, I mean, you could say it, but I personally don't think he's been declining. I think Lomachenko was so good in there, he negated any of the attributes that Rigondeaux brought to the table, and yeah, I just think you know, anyone sort of smaller in and around his weight class, super bantamweight and bantamweight, they would really struggle with some of the things that Rigondeaux was trying in there, but he just couldn't. He obviously couldn't get it off because he was against an even more masterful boxer in there.
Yeah, you're right. I thought size was a factor, but I also thought skills were a factor. And some of the stuff Rigondeaux was doing, some of the way he was getting low and some of the angles he was giving looked advanced. You know, they'd have caused most boxers a lot of problems. But look at the way Lomachenko adapted and, you know, caught Rigondeaux several times as he was going low. You know, I thought it was really, really impressive stuff. Jet, let me ask,
yeah.
Rigondeaux said he hurt his hand. There's been a number of news reports today saying that he's got a bruised hand. Now, given some of the sort of warriors we see in the sport of boxing and people fighting with broken hands for 12 rounds and that sort of thing, you know, now we say that Rigondeaux has a bruised hand, according to the latest reports. Do we have any sympathy for that, or, you know, do we call it what it appears to be and call it a quit?
I mean, everyone's going to have their opinion on it and their 2 pence on it. You know, I mean, if he could fight and he could still go the rounds and make it awkward for Lomachenko, and he could have, which, you know, he wasn't obviously doing, because, as I said, Lomachenko kind of negated any of his attributes. But if he could do it, then why not? If it's just a bruised hand, you know, he could have gone on. But at the same time, you play devil's advocate and say he's an old guy. You don't want to be putting more miles on the clock, more injuries, more time on the shelf. So maybe it was wise for his team to pull him out. I don't know. We won't know. But yeah, on the basis of it, if people are saying someone like Kell Brook quit, then yeah, this was a pathetic and absolutely shit quit.
Let me ask about the future for both guys, Jet. Straight away, there seems to be very minimal interest in seeing Rigondeaux fight again. There's a lot of people saying Lomachenko should fight Mikey Garcia. Frankly, I don't think Lomachenko should fight Mikey Garcia. I think we have weight classes for a reason. I predicted that Rigondeaux, Lomachenko would be one-sided. I thought there'd be a stoppage with size being a key factor. I think the same would happen if Lomachenko fought Mikey Garcia. What's your take on the future for both guys?
Yeah, it's difficult to see where Rigondeaux goes. I mean, I don't know what weight class he's going to campaign at. That's one question. Whether or not this injury may, you know, come again. As you obviously said, it's kind of bruised, but we never know the actual full story, I guess, behind everything. So it depends how that heals, how long he's going to be out the ring. If any promoter will actually put him on a show, that's or anyone wants to, any broadcaster wants to broadcast him. So that, you know, there's a number of questions that are surrounding Rigondeaux, but I hope to see him back. You know, he is a master of his craft, of what he does. He's very good at what he does. Just obviously wasn't good enough for Lomachenko. Lomachenko, you know, they said it on the commentary. The commentary again wasn't similar to how it is now on Sky on this Your Call Bill. Pretty crap. But yeah, I think probably he's going to have to move through the weight classes. You know, he's going to have to move through the weight classes to make the money that he probably, or him and his team, want to make. So I don't know if it's going to be Mikey Garcia. I saw Jorge Linares sent out a tweet on the day or the day after. So that might be a potential opponent if that is, you know, that's another good fight to be made. I do think Lomachenko probably win that. But, you know, there's a lot of skill on show there if it is against Linares. And, you know, anyone else at 135, Robert Easter's there as well. Just, it depends who they can get in the ring with him at the moment, because everyone who gets in the ring seems to be, you know, folding in the mid to late rounds against Loma.
Absolutely. Okay, cheers, Jet. I'm going to go around the panel and then we'll come back to you to discuss the copper box action in a minute. Irish Tom, let's bring you in, mate. Give us a sound check.
Can you hear me?
Oh, that was actually a bit crackly. Let's see if we can press ahead. Tom, give us your initial reaction to the fight, presumably one of a little bit of surprise.
I was surprised. I was watching it and I saw, like, between
Tom, we'll have to come back to you, mate. That's bad. Do you want to jump off and try and come back on again? Paul, let's bring you in, mate. How are you getting on, Paul?
Not bad. Do you want to check my levels and stuff? I don't know if I'm any better tonight. I've looked into adjusting the volume on the iPad and whether there's anything I can actually do, and I've adjusted one thing that has been suggested that might work. So hopefully that'll suffice. I don't know.
You're sounding good to me, Paul. But
I sounded all right on the.
I thought you sounded good last week, though.
Yeah, okay. Well, a couple of people in the chat are saying spot on. Jay Billow, thanks, mate. Shout out to you. And yeah,
Conor Ben's just been dropped heavily at your call, mate, against the journeyman.
What's that, mate?
Conor Ben's just been dropped heavily at your call against a journeyman.
Oh shit!
He's in all sorts of bother here. Yeah, yeah. But yeah,
the most improved fighters in the UK. Fucking hell, man.
Yeah. Let's press ahead. But yeah, Paul, give us your initial reaction to Lomachenko Rigondeaux from last week, mate.
Yeah, man. Look, for me, look, I don't think that was the same version of Rigondeaux that was in with, say, Donaire. That, you know, he didn't look like the same fighter to me. At the same time, I don't think it would have made a difference, to be honest. I think Lomachenko was just had too many tools, too skillful, too advanced. He was the better fighter. I don't think size played a huge difference. I think the things that Lomachenko was doing in there were not so much about size and more about sort of like his skill and him sort of like inflicting his will on Rigo. If you look at from the first round, the first thing he starts to do is every time Rigo starts to try and set himself, he certainly moves to the left. So Rigo can't get any shots off. That's the first thing he did, was took that big left away from him immediately. By the end of the first round, he'd taken pretty much all Rigo's tools away from him. And, you know, by the second or third, it was just, it was what I thought it would be. It was a better fighter against an older, sort of like inactive version of also a decent fighter, a very decent fighter. But it was just, it played out pretty much how I thought it would. Apart from Rigo quitting, I didn't think Rigo would quit, especially when, like, after the Walters fight, Rigo, I think it was on Instagram or Twitter, when sort of like, Walters might be bigger than me, but I've got more heart. I'd never quit in the ring. I'll die in the ring, and all this, like, look, I don't care what anybody says. There's no way his hand was hurt. He didn't land anything to hurt his hand. He claims it happened at the end of the second. There was no indication from him up until then. What happened was quite clear for me. He was completely frustrated. He was out of options. He'd run out of ideas, and he didn't want to take a beating. He didn't want to take a beating or get knocked out, and so he took the easy way out. I've never gone from sort of like really sympathetic for a boxer. My view of a boxer has never changed so dramatically over the space of one fight. It was ridiculous. Like, before the fight, we heard about the purses, how much he'd got and everything, and I started to feel like, you know, this guy's getting on. He's not had no breaks. People have avoided him like the plague. He's, you know, like, I would have liked to have seen him get a good payday. I started to feel kind of like I was in his corner a little bit, even though I am a big Lomachenko fan. By the end of the broadcast, like, I'd done a complete 360. Like, not only was he sort of like, you know, that's ridiculous, bending really low, but then not doing anything, like not coming up and firing, nothing like that. The constant holding, the then quitting, and then at the end refusing to even give Lomachenko any credit, sort of like, oh no, he wasn't doing anything different. It wasn't his skill. It was just my hand. Just like, I don't know if a boxer has ever sort of like, just, I think he's done for him. I'm not saying he won't fight again, but I think at the highest level, for various reasons. For one, I think he's lost a lot of respect for what he just did. And for two, I think he's a sharp fighter compared to what he was. I just think I've got no interest in seeing him again, to be completely honest. I think he's done.
Absolutely. So, Paul, you mentioned you've got no sympathy for the hand that has been classed by various reports today as a bruised hand. You know, do you think? I mean, is that gonna really be? I know it's awful to say. In 10 years, when we look back at the career of Rigondeaux, will the bruised hand be the main talking point?
Well, it might be. Yeah. I mean, look, the thing is, for him to sort of like come out and, you know, put it on Walters after Walters quit and everything. Walters is just as bad, you know. But like, when he sat down, it was the right hand, and the commentary team actually touched on this. It was the right hand that they were first like holding up and everything, and then it was the left hand. And if you look at it, he's kind of like turning it around and shaking it, and the doctor's patting it on the. There was no like wincing or look of like I'm in pain here or anything like that. It was a blatant a blatant quit, blatant quit. I've got a sympathy for somebody like Kell Brook, maybe who is taking punishment to a part like his head, you know, his eyes and stuff might, you know, he could end up blind, stuff like that. That I can kind of like forgive a little bit, but something like that, I think that the majority of sort of like real boxing fans, anybody that's not just a like blatant Rigo fanboy, will kind of like, he will go way down in their estimation for that. I think it was just a very, very blatant quit, and probably one of the worst quits I've ever seen. He could have quite easily carried on fighting, quite easily. He would have got a beating, but you know, take your beating or get knocked out. You know, like especially when it's been built up into this big thing, and like it was him, you know, historic fight and everything. I just really pissed off at the end, to be completely honest.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely, and especially with Rigondeaux being talked about as this gigantic puncher. When you're that big a puncher, theoretically, you surely would want to continue because you could turn the tide of the fight at any point. He didn't look like that much of a puncher in there to me, anyway. But
I think that was what started to cross his mind when it looked to me like he sort of like changed his mind between the right and the left. They started at one point looking at the left. This is when he was sitting in the corner. I think, and I was thinking about this, maybe that's what went through his mind. You know, oh shit, like if I say my right's gone, I've got that big left still. If I say the left, then, you know, I can say, well, what could I have done with the right? All right, he's got a right hook, but you know, his signature sort of like knockout punch is that big left, straight left, isn't it? So
yeah,
I don't know. Look, it's only my opinion. I don't know. Somebody in the chat says, how do you know his hand wasn't hurt? I don't know his hand wasn't hurt. You know, it's just an opinion. It's based on what I saw in the ring. It's based on what I saw in the corner. And I would love to, if it was, I would love to know when it was that he hurt it, because to my recollection, he never landed anything big on Lomachenko.
Indeed. I mean, I can't remember a real notable punch. What would you like to see Lomachenko do next, Paul?
Do you know, I was thinking about this. Like, if you look at, you know, I think he probably will end up fighting Mikey Garcia, but I hope it doesn't happen like next or anything. Look, Mikey like went up to 140, and let's be honest, he bullied Broner. This is a much bigger guy. Now, like, I've heard people saying like, well, Rigo came up to fight him, but like, it was clearly a fucking bad move. Like, because Rigo did it, what Loma should also make the same silly move. You know, let's not forget, it was Rigo that was constantly calling Lomachenko out. It wasn't like Lomachenko was clamoring for the fight. He called him out and called him out and called him out, dissed him, blah, 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 put it on him, and Loma went, all right then, fine. You know, I don't want to see him in with Mikey yet. I think it would serve him to, I'd like to see him clean up the 130-pound division. You know, there's Bachout that's got about, there's another guy that's got about, I forget his name. His name evades me right now. Jet would probably be able to jump in with that, like, quick time. If he
Devonta Davis?
No, well, Gervonta's Gervonta hasn't got the belt anymore, has he? I think there might be another guy that holds that other belt now. Or I might be wrong about that. But there's definitely Miguel Bachelt that's got a belt. I would just like to see him clean up the division and then move up. That's what I'd like to see him do.
Yeah. Paul, final question. Any words for Irish Tom?
I think all the words that Irish Tom needs were conveyed in actions on the night. I don't think it needs to be rubbed in anymore. So nah. I don't like to be that sort of like a guy, you know. So no, I'll give him a squeeze.
But this was the podcast that none of us were going to be able to turn up to.
I know, yeah.
We're going to be so embarrassed.
I know. Well, I'm here and I feel just fine. What about yourself,
mate? I feel, I just feel in love with life. I'll see if I could bring the man himself in now. Give him another test. 100 people watching live. Only about a third of you hitting the thumbs up button. Come on, help us out. Hit that thumbs up button. Subscribe if you're new. Let's bring Irish Tom back in. Let's see if we can get a bit more luck this time. Irish, you back with us, mate?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Just turn up your volume, but yeah, that was loud and clear, mate. Definitely. Give us your take on the fight from the weekend, mate.
Well, I don't know what anyone else is seeing, but I saw a spook in a suit, coming into the round between first round and the second round, and he put what seemed to be some kind of hallucinogen into his drink, and while his hand may have been bruised, it probably felt like a lot more when he was on such large amounts of LSD. So there's no denying that the CIA had a heavy hand in that fight, trying to bring disrepute onto the communist Cuban system. This is a total disgrace.
I think if I recall, Tom, you'd predicted Loma to win on points, Rigo to win on points, the draw, Rigo to get robbed, and Rigo to win by knockout. One thing you didn't see coming was Lomachenko to win by stoppage. Were you surprised at the manner of the defeat?
Well, he didn't win by stoppage. What I didn't see was Rigo. What I didn't see was Rigo losing by CIA interference into the sport that we most love and respect.
Oh dear. So after the CIA's involvement, Tom, would you want to see Rigo box again after that, or do you think you've seen enough for him to sail off to the sunset now?
Chance that his psyche would be ruined by a massive overdose of LSD. That's the way I'm looking at it. No, seriously, I used to have a dog, my old dog, and my old dog, he got cancer of the anus. That's actually a thing. And he climbed into bed when he was getting very sick. He was getting incontinent. I woke up and he had climbed on my bed and he had shat all over the bed. And that was less than how much Rigo shat the bed in that fight.
So a quit in your book?
One of the worst quits. Are you all right there, Gossip? You're getting cold there in the flash. It's a quit of the highest proportion.
Associated with this.
A quit of the highest proportions. Absolute. How can you stand up for Rigo after a performance like that? One thing I would say, when I said last week I didn't think Lomachenko would be able to impose his style. He was able to impose his style straight away. If people give the first round to Rigo, that's only because Loma was having a look at him. Rigo was thoroughly outclassed. And I agree with Paul. I think that if it was prime Rigo, it wouldn't have made any difference. I think Loma showed the skills that, are really able to befuddle opponents. I think the type of person who would have to be able to defeat him would be a very, very skillful guy. And I think that's going to be difficult because they won't have seen his style before. Or a guy who's just a balls to the wall, Marcus Maidana type. You know, they're the two types that would be able to deal with Loma. I think it was a very good performance by Loma. I think he didn't beat him up because of his size or because he was old. He beat him up because he didn't really beat him up. He made him quit because he outfought him and outthought him. And it was a very good performance, I think, from Lomachenko. Certainly, I think Lomachenko has to be, I think, now top 3 pound for pound. You know, perhaps even number 1. And I think the one thing I will say about it is, though, that even though I give him all the credit in this, I don't enjoy his style. I just don't enjoy his style.
So you think we've seen the last of Rigo, and we think you're now a Lomachenko convert, and you think he's legit top class is the long and the short of it, Tom?
Yeah, like I've thought he's top class for a good 2 or 3 fights now, but I think he's an exceptional talent now. I hope never to see Rigo again. As somebody who's championed Rigo and all that, and the way and the manner of the quit, like that was a much worse quit than the one by the Axeman. Rigo wasn't even getting beaten up in that. He wasn't bruised. He wasn't bashed. He just quit. Like, that is about as bad a quit as I've ever seen. Like, literally, journeymen don't quit like that. A journeyman would have kept going.
Yeah. No, I can't disagree with that, Tom. Who would you like to see Lomachenko fight on with? Who would you like to see him fight next?
Well, I don't really mind who any of the champions in that weight division. I totally disagree with Paul about saying Mikey Garcia shouldn't fight him.
I don't think I think Garcia is just far too big and too strong. I think Garcia would take him out.
Garcia is just one weight class above. Remember, Mikey Garcia went up at 140 and he was much the smaller man against Broner. Mikey Garcia is a 135 fighter. That's where he fights.
Did you not see the photo of them? Did you not see that video of the two of them together?
Oh, look. I think, if Lomachenko is going to move up, he's going to move up. If he moves up, we can't be saying he can't fight the best guy in that division. If he wanted to move up, he should be fighting Mikey Garcia. That's the fight we should be calling for. Whether he should stay where he is, I think he probably beats all the guys. I think someone like Lomachenko can move up through the weights. Like, I think he's that skilled to be able to do it. I think he beats Mikey Garcia. And I've come from the other side of that. Yeah, I think he beats Mikey Garcia. Yeah, I just think that...
Yeah.
Because I think, if you think about it, like, Lomo's got a highly unorthodox style. And Mikey is essentially a pure orthodox fighter. He does everything that's orthodox fighters supposed to do, and he does it brilliantly. But the type of fighter he won't do well against is struggle against will be somebody like Loma, who can do all kind of crazy stuff. And to be honest with you, Loma, he just kind of befuddles guys with angles and things, and it's just too much for these guys who aren't used to that style. You have to be a balls to the wall guy, I think, to just bite down your gum shield and go for a type to get through a fight with him, or be super elite. Like, the only person I think that might have a chance skill wise now in boxing today is probably Anthony Fowler. No, not Anthony Fowler. Crawford.
Anthony Fowler and Terence Crawford are slightly different styles, yeah. That's interesting. So Tom is picking Garcia if they fight. Sorry, Tom is picking Lomachenko if he fights Mikey Garcia at 135. I'm definitely with Garcia on that one. Paul, who are you with?
What if Lomachenko and Garcia were to fight? What if they were to fight like next?
Yeah, next at 135.
Do you know the way I see it with Lomachenko now? Like, I think, I think at sort of like below 140, I think the only chance somebody's going to have against Lomachenko is if they catch him with something and knock him out. I think skill wise, I mean, look, we don't know how he'd take a punch off of Mikey Garcia. Mikey Garcia is quite clearly would be the biggest guy Lomachenko would have fought. I mean, I agree with you that video of the two of them together, the size difference was apparent and it was vast. And I also think that Mikey wasn't necessarily the bigger man in there with Broner, I think, and Broner wasn't necessarily the bigger man in that fight. I really just think like the only way somebody's going to beat him at those weights are if somebody knocks him out. And you know, Mikey's really good as well, though. That's the thing. If I had to put my hat on something at this point, I would go with Lomachenko, simply because I've got to imagine in 390 other amateur fights, he probably fought a big puncher as well, and he probably got caught. And I know it's different, and I know it's with head guards and stuff, but that's you know, like just skill wise, I think he'd probably have too much for him, to be honest.
Interesting. Okay, so
he couldn't knock him out. I think Mikey has extraordinary power. Like Mikey has like fucking elite power. I think pound for pound, Mikey might be one of the biggest punchers in the sport right now. His power is just ridiculous.
Yeah,
will he be able to find him though? Will he be able to find him? I don't think he'll be able to find him with a power shot.
No, that's the question. I don't think he would either, to be honest.
I'd make Mikey quite a big favourite in that fight, as in not a 50-49. I'd want Mikey sort of 70% in that one.
For what reason?
I think size is a big factor. And I think that with Lomachenko's style, he's going to have to be trading long-range punches against a guy in Mikey Garcia, who's a much bigger guy who can hit him from a much greater distance. You know, I really think that we saw Lomachenko. We saw in Lomachenko Rigondeaux how a fight with that big a size difference is affected. And you know, I suspect we'd see the same thing again if Garcia fought Loma.
I mean, I just don't think the size made a huge difference in that fight, the Rigo fight. He didn't really impose himself size wise. The only time you could even say maybe he did was when Rigo bent low and sort of Lomachenko just sort of like pushed down on his head a little bit. But most of the time, all he did was put his hand on his head and then sort of sidestepped around him or like all the way around him or whatever.
I thought he was so strong on the inside, though. I thought he just looked like, you know, the man when it was like a sort of inside fight.
He looked like the man, but I think I think he showed skill more than strength. For me, I think it's the way he operates inside. I don't think he doesn't bully people with his size inside. He befuddles them with angles and with footwork and with just superior skill, superior technique. And you know, I think if Rigo had have been, you know, the bigger guy in there slightly, you know, I think Lomachenko still would have done the exact same thing.
Yeah, see, I think Mikey Garcia in his current, if you take weight classes out of it, I think Mikey Garcia has a lot more to offer at this stage than Rigondeaux did, you know, at the age of 37 or 38 or whatever he is.
I agree with that.
I think Garcia is at this point a far superior fighter, regardless of the size, you know?
Yeah, I agree with that. Did anybody think, like, just generally anyway, like even in that first round when, you know, as Tom said, Lomachenko was just having a look at him really, that Rigo really didn't, even before we started to get, like, schooled, he didn't look like the same fighter I saw even just like 3 or 4 years ago. I don't know what anybody else thought. What you said last week about is it possible that he's got old and stuff, and we just haven't seen it. Look, we're never going to know that because he's been in fights where they've ended really quickly. The Flores fight at the end of the first round. Dickens, how many rounds did the Dickens fight go before he got his jaw broke?
1 or 2, wasn't it?
2, yeah. So we're never going to know, but I think that's a very, very good possibility. Because he didn't seem as sharp. He just seemed demoralized. He seemed like he didn't want to be there. It was an awful, absolutely awful performance by Rigo.
It really was. Let's just complete the panel because that's interesting. So you guys both going Loma. I'm going Mikey Garcia by quite a confident margin. Jet, who would you pick in that matchup at 135?
Probably Lomachenko, I'll be honest.
Interesting.
I just think, that the angles, I think Irish is spot on this one as well. I think he's gone from one camp to the other, and he's probably spot on this one. That Lomachenko comes in some ridiculous angles, and he, the pull down of the jab, the triple jab, the quadruple jab, everything he does is, efficient. He knows exactly what he's doing. That's not to say Mikey Garcia doesn't, and I know Mikey Garcia is a bit bigger. But, quite a bit bigger. And it's just, I think he's a similar sort of fighter to Rigo. Probably not, the movement of of a counter puncher in terms of thing, but he can stand in front of you and take that half step back and counter punch. I pick Loma, but I'm not confident, I'm not confident that 110% he wins. But for me, it's, it's a close fight. I think Loma will probably just shade it on work rate and just clean punches landed. I think that's kind of my outtake on the fight. Although I would like to see Mikey Garcia fight the mighty Conor Benn, who's just actually won right now.
Yeah. Less said about that, the better. That's interesting. Okay, so I'm outgunned there. The panel 3-1, Lomachenko beats Mikey Garcia. I'm actually interested to get a bigger sample size. So let me just briefly ask the chat. If Lomachenko fought Mikey Garcia next time out at 135, who are you guys picking in the chat? And I'll read them out live because I'd be interested to see what the consensus is. I thought I've personally think Mikey Garcia is too good to just jump up weight classes and compete with him, if I'm honest, even if you are Lomachenko. But, clearly the guys on the panel disagree with me. Adam's going Garcia win.
I think up to Terence Crawford, he probably doesn't get beat, Lomachenko. I really do.
Interesting. AO's going Garcia. Jam's going Loma. Peanut is going Loma. David Loma. Skits Garcia. Jared Mikey Garcia. So it's a split. Fat Apples is going Loma. Interesting. Lenny's going Loma. Tony's going Mikey. Yeah, it's a 50-50. It's a great fight. I actually thought it shouldn't happen based on Lomachenko's size, but you guys have now convinced me that I definitely want to see it. Let me go. Sorry, go ahead, Paul.
I don't think it should happen next either. I really don't, because I do think there is a big size difference at the minute, and I think it's entirely possible that if Mikey did catch him, it could be just lights out. I'd like to see him fight Butch out and unify the titles, and maybe in 2 or 3 fights time fight Mikey. That's what I'd like to see.
Yeah, I could see that. Let me ask another question to the panel. Whose performance this weekend was worse? Guillermo Rigondeaux's or James DeGale's? Jet.
Rigondeaux.
DeGale.
Fucking shit, man. Absolute shit.
Mate, I've seen fighters get old before. I have never seen a fighter of that class disintegrate that quickly. I mean, regardless of what you think about Badou Jack, DeGale, took that guy to a draw, put in a good performance there, showed he was at elite level. He's just lost to a sort of gatekeeper standard. I mean, I would say the equivalent would be like Deontay Wilder losing to Tony Thompson. I mean, what has happened yet?
You know what? I sat down and watched the fight, came back from work, and I was I was more interested to see how he would look and how, you know, the shoulder was going to heal and that sort of stuff. And mate, it was depressing, and it was, you know, one boring and sad to watch. You know, the fall from grace for James DeGale is, you know, quite dramatic, and yeah, he's fallen so far. It's, you know, Caleb Truax got iced in one round by Danny Jacobs, and you know that just says it all. That just says it all. I mean, James DeGale was.
You mean Durrell, Jack?
Sorry?
You mean Durrell?
No, just Jacobs. I was thinking about just the Jacobs fight. I know he got iced by Durrell in 3 rounds or something like that, 2-3 rounds.
Oh, I thought he went longer in the fight with Jacobs, but maybe you're right, man.
No, he went 1 round with Jacobs. He got iced in a round by Jacobs.
Oh, I thought it was Durrell.
Someone in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, but from as far as I remember, I'm going to type it in now while we're talking. But yeah, DeGale, mate, he was. You know, I don't even know how to. You know, I don't know how to describe it. His footwork was terrible. His you know, his hand speed seemed to have disintegrated. He was disorientated. I don't know if they said something was wrong with his ring boots, and it seemed he did slip a few times, but his footwork was so uncoordinated. You know, every time he was getting caught by a punch, he'd try and half ride the punch, but half try and fight back, and his jab again was non-existent. It's a massive fall from grace. I was talking to a few friends offline, you know, who have an interest in James DeGale, and they said, "Did you see the fight?" I said, "Mate, the Badou Jack fight has absolutely aged him to the point that he won't be competitive against the top guys anymore. I just don't think he's got it anymore." And Eddie Hearn, you know, fair play, obviously, he'd probably be the first to rain on James DeGale and Frank Warren's parade. But you know, he even said, if you're not in this game and you don't have a passion for the game and you're just looking to make money, quick money, which maybe DeGale's looking for, then he better get out quick, because he looked like he was going to get seriously hurt in there at times. That round 5 was brutal to watch. And, you know, we've all been, I think all on the podcast, we've all been fans of what James DeGale has, at least he's done since, you know, winning the world title. And maybe just beforehand, 1-2 fights ago, since he actually shut his mouth and started boxing. And yeah, he just doesn't look like he's going to be competitive again against, you know, the Eubank. If Eubank was in there, oh my, well, that's a different, you know, kettle of fish. I think Eubank would absolutely walk through James DeGale at this moment in time.
I mean, the tactics were just outrageous. Like, he seemed
the corner work was terrible as well.
So I mentioned this, like, you know, Jim McDonald told him he was ahead. Every time he moved, he just like gravitated, like he had a magnet attached to that corner. The few times he landed good offense, he really didn't press home the advantage. You know, he put some punches together and then went straight away back to the corner. He really needed to press home his advantage, but he failed to do so. It was terrible.
Yeah, it's so like frustrating, I think, from our perspective, knowing how good DeGale, well, now was. You know, it's past tense now at the moment. He done nothing in that fight to convince any true boxing fan that he's got something at the highest level. And as I said earlier, it's sad to see. It's sad that the fall from grace was, you know, is evident. The Badou Jack fight, the Porky Medina fight, you know, the fights that he's got in complete wars with, and the guys he's got in complete wars with, it's caught up to him. It's caught up to him. He's 31 or 32, I think. He's an old, early 30 man. He's very old. And you see his face, he was busted up bad in that fight by, as you said, he's a gatekeeper, Truax. You know, he gets iced, I think, by George Groves. Eubank walks through him. You know, Gilberto Ramirez, I don't think he has the most power, but he would box rings around him.
I think Rocky Fielding stops him.
Maybe even David Brophy, but or Martin Murray. But yeah, I mean, it was sad. It really was sad. And yeah, maybe that is the end of James DeGale at the top level. If he wants to come back and fight maybe at British European level, fair play to him. But as Eddie Hearn did say in the interview, and I think correctly said, he's going to look at the paycheck that he's going to get for his next fight and think, "Fuck that! I'm not going to fight for that."
Yeah, because they're going to have to pay huge money to get Truax back over. And it's only going to be a copper box fight.
Yeah.
You know, there's not going to be the purse for Degale to get a superstar wage out of
that. Unless he goes back over to the States, then the fight is, you know, I guess viable for Al and whoever Warriors boxing, whoever promotes him and that sort of stuff. So that means, you know, he's not going to be working with Frank for the next fight, but then he's going to have to come back to the UK. It's all up in the air now. It's all up in the air. But congrats to Truax. You know, congrats to him. I know, obviously, we sit here and obviously say Groves beats him and that sort of stuff. He deserved the win. He you know, came fair game. He pushed the fight and he deserved to win. You know, so I'm glad he actually got the decision.
Yeah, fair play to Caleb Truax. Nice guy. Deserved to win. You're absolutely spot on, Jet. Like, fair play that they gave the right decision. For, you know, very rare you see that in Britain. He put out a tweet the other day saying he went into boxing to pay off his student loan, you know, and then he's put up a photo of that student loan and he had to pay two cents to pay it off. So he, you know, got to his dream of paying off his student loan. Now he's in line for a life-changing payday in his next fight. You know, that is the dream of boxing. So fair play to Truax there. And hopefully he makes enough money from the sport now to secure his future. He should do. You know, which is nice to see. But it hurts me. I've been a James Degale fan and supporter for many years. I was so excited to see Degale take on Eubanks or Degale take on Groves. And, you know, it feels like that's slipped away. It really does. And, you know, it's hard to have any sympathy for Degale based on that performance. You know, he tactically got it so wrong. He was so arrogant going into the fight, you know, calling it a nice, easy one. It's hard to have any sympathy. Paul.
Also, sorry, BG. I think he needs a new trainer.
Yeah,
Jimmy Mack is not doing him any favors. He's telling him he was winning in the corner. What fight is Jimmy Mack watching?
Yeah.
I mean, someone explained to me. I don't even understand. I was sitting down watching it and I was like, oh, another shit day of fucking Box Nation commentary. And I sat there and then all I hear is, you're winning the fight, James. Don't worry. But he's not telling him, you know, press the action or when you get on the rope, slip the shot, come back with a nice double jab or something. No constructive corner work at all whatsoever. And, you know, that was he sounded a bit despondent in the post-fight interview. Fair play, he stood around for the post-fight interview, didn't run off, and he said he's going to make some changes. And if that changes, from the sound of it, it did sound like he was looking to change up his team. And if he's going to change up his team, you know, whether or not it's going to make a difference at this stage in his career, I don't know. But he does need some. I think he needs a refresh energy, similar to how Billy Joe's gone with Dominic Ingle. And I know you made a video about Billy Joe versus Degale possibly, but yeah, that would be you know, that would be maybe the next logical step for James if he's going to stay in the sport, get a new trainer.
Totally agree. Let me bring in Paul. Paul, what was your take on the fight, mate?
Do you know what? I was watching something else. I don't know if it was the box. I think it might have been the boxing or whatever. At the time, I didn't watch it live, and I see the notification come through, and do you know, one of them ones where you can only read the start of it, and it seemed to be saying James Degale had lost. I couldn't fucking believe it. To be honest, I could not believe it. I didn't see this coming at all. I don't think anybody saw this coming. When you actually think about it, James Degale, is it possible he peaked sort of like, you know, 2013, 2014, you know, who was it? Gonzalez, Gonzalez, Brandon Gonzalez, Michael Paraban,
Durrell, Bute.
Yeah, Paraban, Durrell, Bute. You know, then Porky Medina gave him all he could handle. You know, the Jack fight. A lot of people.
Paul, I'm sorry, I muted you by mistake, mate.
That's all right, no worries. Yeah, like I was just saying, it's possible like he kind of like went through his peak. You know, Brandon Gonzalez, Marco Antonio Paraban, Bute, and everything. It's possible that he's just peaked early and he's past it. He looked like a fighter that's past it to me. I actually think you know, you were saying it's, you know, it's the equivalent of Deontay Wilder being beaten by I can't remember who it was you said.
Tony Thompson.
Yeah, but I mean, like Tony Thompson at least has fought at heavyweight before. Like, I think it'd be the equivalent of him being beaten by, I don't know, like a Lunga Makabu or something, like a kind of like because like Truax isn't even like. I mean, like, would anybody before this fight would anybody have named Caleb Truax in their top 10 middleweights?
Hell no.
Definitely
No chance. Absolutely no chance. I'm not sure he would have even got into my top 30 middleweights.
No way.
I don't think I know the middleweight division well enough to name the top 30 middleweights, but that's besides the point. He, you know, you get my point. It's like this has got to be the biggest upset of the year. Upset. I mean, like I can't think of a bigger upset this year. I really can't. Look, yeah, I mean,
Saw Wrong Versailles versus Gonzalez.
yeah, perhaps. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. Rung Versailles I'd never heard of.
But
The greatest fighter of all time, Roman Gonzalez.
but maybe for UK fans, it was the biggest upset because they know how big, so they know how good James DeGale is. You know, people obviously watch tape of Chocolatito and think he's good, but some people think he's a bit average. So maybe he was expected, but DeGale, no one expected DeGale to lose to Truax.
No, nobody. I don't think you could find one person that said that they even entertained the thought of. I mean, look, we were saying in this podcast last week, weren't we? It's a shit fight.
Yeah.
It's a shit fight. I was disappointed with it. I was like, why is he fighting? Why is he bringing up a smaller guy? Like, what's that all about? You know, I know he's been injured and whatnot, and I don't know. It was like I was just really disappointed. He looked awful in the ring. I've never seen him look that bad from, you know, his early days. You know, I can remember the year that DeGale went to the Olympics. We had a few. I'm trying to think of some of the other guys that were in that GB team that year.
Billy Joe,
Frankie Gavin, Billy Joe. Yeah, it was a good team we had that year, and I've been a fan of James DeGale. You know, you know, he's just. I think he might be just going downhill. What is he? 31, 32?
Yeah.
It might be all done for him. I mean, there's probably still some big fights in the UK for him if he was to come back and get a decent win under his belt. Maybe it's just been the way he lives his life and his sort of like complacency. Does strike me as a very complacent character. Maybe this could be the wake up call he needs, and he just gets back into training and comes back. Who knows? But disappointed. Yeah.
Totally. Let's bring back Irish Tom. Tom, anything to add, mate?
Well, yeah, I think it was way worse than Rigo's performance. Like, he got the shit bet out of him by a guy who's not pound for pound. You know, he got beaten from pillar to post.
He didn't quit,
you know, he didn't quit. That's, you know, yeah. He didn't quit. But like, if Rigo could go down and still win a world title, where can James DeGale go after that? You know, we were talking only about a week or two ago about James DeGale sounding punch drunk. Like, I think that performance puts like Baddy Jack's performance, and it puts George Groves, and it puts all that super middleweight division into context. Like, James DeGale apparently is not living the life. He's known to be out partying, doing God knows what. Like, I don't, you know, you guys are slating Jim McDonald. I don't slate Jim McDonald because a lot of that what people say in the corner is psychological. Like, do you remember, like, what people should watch, like, Lennox Lewis versus Vitaly Klitschko. Like, Lewis was a character who was often way overconfident, you know, like James DeGale, you know, nearly arrogant. Hatman's always on about. I think he's right. But listen to what Manny Stewart was saying in the corner. He was saying to Lennox Lewis that the Lennox is after getting a bit of a hammer in for a few rounds. He goes, "Oh yeah, he's tired. He's tired, Lennox. He's not able for this." And you're looking at it going, "What the fuck?" Lewis looks like he's hanging. Like, some guys are motivated different ways. So I'm not going to slag a guy for, he might be doing that for psychological reasons. You know, I
disagree there. I've got to agree with Jet here. I think, like, it's one thing sort of trying to G your man up and say, look, he's looking tired and whatnot. I think it's a very different thing because, look, when you're in a fight, you can't gauge whether you're winning that fight or not. It's just impossible. You're in the moment too much, yeah? you need your team. You need your team to say. You need your trainer to say, look, this is a close one, or you might be losing this or whatever. I agree with Jet in that. I think, you know, telling him, James, it's all right, you're winning this fight was awful corner work.
He's just barefaced lying to him in the corner, though. Like,
yeah, but
when your fighter is doing the same thing wrong every single round, you've got to let them know, and telling them they're winning the fight is almost telling them, keep doing what you're doing. You're winning.
Yeah, but so in that instance, why would Manny Stewart, one of the greatest trainers of all time, tell Lennox Lewis obviously stupid shit that everybody watching it knows is wrong? There's a huge
difference, though. What you have said is correct, that probably was psychological. He probably knew that Lennox would be motivated by that because he knew his fighter.
But so why does that not count? Because I tell you what, I'll tell you who knows James DeGale more than any of us is his trainer of like 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, but
so like
Tom, so if you think about this in any walk of life, think about it in work, think about it in family, etc. If you tell someone that the result of what they're doing is good, you cannot complain if they keep doing it. If like your kid at home threw a plate against the wall and you said, here's a $5, you couldn't complain if they did it again. You know, it's kind of the same concept. He's told
is though, like
winning.
Yeah, but there's as well. Like, there's a difference between Manny telling Lennox like he's getting tired and whatnot. Yeah, that's okay. He's getting tired. There's a difference between that and Jim saying to James, "You're winning. Keep that." That's a totally different.
Manny said you're winning. He said he's winning, and Lennox was getting his arse handed to him for a couple of rounds. Listen, go back and listen to that. Look, all I'm saying is that what works for one guy doesn't work for another. And the trainer will know what psychologically will work better than us because they know the guy. And like James DeGale might be the type of guy, if you said, oh, you're losing, get your act together, he might he might fall apart. Yeah. So different people respond in different ways. Like if you have a kid, one kid will respond well to criticism and one will drop their head from it. So it's all like for like. So I don't like shitting on a trainer over something like that I don't know about. But like for me, the person is to blame in all of this is not his trainer, to be honest with you. If his trainer was right when he was winning stuff, why is his trainer wrong? I think the person to blame in this thing, well, it's not, it might be blame, but if a guy's out drinking and acting a maggot, right, he's the guy that takes responsibility. A trainer can only do so much. And like, so I blame James DeGale if he's out drinking and doing this stuff. And, you know, and also I think that if Jim McDonald was such a bad coach, how did he get James DeGale to be such a good, slick fighter? You know, I just find people like to shit on a trainer when a fella loses. They don't shit. They don't. You know, where were they when he was winning and riding high and people saying he's the best super middleweight in the world? Look, I think that James DeGale is the person who's to blame. And I think, you know, before this fight, I said, you know, like last week or the week before, I think James DeGale should get out of boxing and retire 1 or 2 more fights. And he's taking a hammering there. He's taking a hammering. Now, whether he's able to get back to where he was, I don't know, because I think he's taken quite a few hammerings. And I don't think he'll ever be the same fighter again. I think he's done. I think he's about as done as a fighter looks. Baron, and it explains, you know, James DeGale, when he's threatened, he turns into a bit of an asshole. Like when George Groves was wrecking his head and he was threatened, he started calling him like, I don't know, ginger tosser or smelly or something, and everybody disliked James DeGale when he did that. And this week he did the exact same kind of thing. He hadn't done it for a long time, but this week, the 2 times he's done it since then was one after Porky Medina nearly got the decision and he was very disrespectful to him, and this time saying Chris Eubank was shit senior, you know. So James DeGale acts like that when he's under pressure, and he obviously knows that he's not the fighter he was, or that he's been taking the piss. Because, you know, he lashes out when he's backed into a corner like that. I think James DeGale is the one who's got to answer all these questions. And blaming Jim McDonald in a corner is like, you know, you know, like a guy, Jim McDonald knows more about boxing than any of us will ever know. So, like, I think he's saying that for a reason. He's not doing it for no reason.
I agree with you there, Tom. I think James DeGale does have to take the bulk of responsibility. I'm not saying it's Jim McDonnell's fault, not by any stretch of the imagination. What I am saying is it was bad corner work telling him he was winning. I think at the same time, James DeGale he does look like a shot fighter to me, and he does have to take the bulk of the responsibility if he's not living his life properly. But at the same time, I think sort of like being honest with the fighter in the corner about the where he's at. It is fucking vital. It's vital if I just think
it might be counterproductive for a different character. That's all I'm saying. I'm saying I don't know. Like, I think it might be counterproductive, and Jim McDonnell might know his fighter a lot better than us. So I don't want to slate a guy and just think that Jim McDonnell is a fucking idiot. Like, I just don't think he is an idiot.
I mean, I just think that telling him he's winning was only going to end up one way, and that was with him keep doing the same things, which was losing him the fight. Saying that the truth, which was that he was losing quite clearly, maybe it would have been counterproductive, but at least that would have had a chance of maybe sort of getting him to rally or something. If you tell him the things are all right, then he's not going to change anything.
Yeah, and he didn't change anything. He kept doing exactly the same.
He did in the last couple of rounds. He did come on. He did come on strong in the last couple of rounds.
But it was the same tactic. He was just came on. But my point is this, right? I for what it's worth, I do agree that DeGale takes the majority of the blame. DeGale is an Olympic medalist. He's a world champion. He's an extremely experienced professional. He fought a tactically awful fight, and he takes a huge proportion of the blame for that. What I do think is that Jim McDonnell's corner work was counterproductive. And all of this chat, Iris, and I see what you're saying, like no one was slating Jim McDonnell when DeGale was winning the belt. You know, we're only slating Jim McDonnell now. The truth is sometimes you're only tested when things get tough. You know, with the greatest of respect, I could have trained Deontay Wilder to beat Bermane Stiverne the other day. Sometimes when there's that clear a result, the trainer isn't as important. It's when somebody is really up against it, when the going gets tough, that there's a true test. And halfway through the fight, when DeGale was going life or death, he said to his trainer, I'm winning the fight, yeah? I'm winning it, aren't I? And his trainer told him, yes, you are. You're winning it. Yes, James. You know, for me, critical error.
Well, like, for most people, don't get me wrong, for most people, that's like a stupid thing to say. Well, all I'm just saying is that James DeGale might be the type of character who needs to feel reassurance in those spots. And to do it would be counterproductive. And just like, you know, Jim McDonnell is not a dope. He's not a dope. And it's not like he trained them to beat guys that were shit. He trained them to beat good fighters like Durrell and Draw with Jack and these guys. So he's not a dope. He's obviously taken this kid all the way to world championship level and Olympic gold medal as well, I think. So, like, he's not a dope. So, you know, maybe he knows his fighter better than we do. And, like, anyway, you know, who cares? But, you know, I think James DeGale is done, and I don't think there's any way back.
Okay. Okay. Well, it's a long, long, long road back for him, if there is a road back. I think we can agree on that. And it's a very, very sad end to the career if that is where it ends. Guys, we spent over an hour discussing last week's fight. There's still quite a few more fights to do. So what I'm going to do is just shout out a fight or a fighter, and if you've got something to say your piece, but I won't go around the whole panel. Let's start with Lee Selby. For me, slightly disappointing, slightly forgettable performance. He was good. He was classic Lee Selby. It was forgettable. It was kind of first gear.
Yeah,
anyone
I agree.
Got any comments on that? Yeah, agreed. Good stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
Daniel Dubois really did what we expected against Dorian Darts. He's progressing nicely. Frank's probably manoeuvring him at the right kind of pace. I'd like to see him in with some durable journeyman types now.
I'd just like to say on this one, War Darch, he went longer with Dubois than he went with AJ. Top man.
There you go.
And he got knocked down as well. He got knocked down.
Yeah.
He wasn't stopped on his feet.
I think he went down 4 times, in fact.
Yeah.
Top man.
Respect.
Top man.
Anthony Yard, big step up. He came through nicely.
I was impressed with Yard. I was
Good.
actually really impressed with Yard. I thought he was. The thing I like about Anthony Yard is, like, he's quite clearly got a lot of skill. He's quite clearly got a lot of power, and yet he's very, very composed in the way he goes about his business. in there. You know, I was really impressed with him. The guy had never been stopped before. If I think I'm right in saying that.
Correct.
And you know, every time Anthony Yarde sort of like really sort of like went up the, you know, shifted up through the gears, he looked like he could stop him at any minute. And every time he caught him with something big, he looked like, I think he's a good Anthony Yarde. I really do. I think he's really good. I was impressed with him. I don't know how anybody.
I think he's chinny.
You think he's chinny?
Yeah, I think he's chinny. I don't know.
Based on what?
Well, based on rumors and also based on an interview. I don't know if anybody heard Tunde Njai, his trainer, interviewed by Belaric the other day. And he as much as admitted that he was chinny.
Did he? What did he actually?
Yeah, like he did it kind of by accident, you know. And I heard rumors about it before then. So like Cam on the coalition, boxing coalition, he's been saying it for a good while. And to be honest with you, I think that he's chinny, and he'll be found out when he comes up against a guy who punches.
What did Tunde actually say though? Can you remember?
Jesus, I'd have to. It's a long interview. I'd have to go and get it again. It's worth having a listen if you want. Where your man asks him about his chin, and he says
shots the other day though, didn't he? I mean, I saw him. I mean, if he's chinny, that's a problem because he's quite defensively open, isn't he? I mean, he was taking a few. Against Zlotko.
Yeah, he did take a few. That was the only criticism I would have had of him. He did take a few from Zlotko, and Zlotko's like not elite by any stretch of the imagination. What I would say on the chinny thing is, look, I've been watching boxing a lot of years. Yeah, every time a fighter comes up and is like kind of like being spoken about a little bit, there's nearly always rumors that they're chinny. Here's my question: what makes somebody chinny? Because I heard somebody talking about this the other day about somebody else. I can't remember who it was. Like, it was Joshua. Joshua's chinny because he got knocked down by this person, that person, and the other. I don't class that as chinny. I mean, anybody can get caught. Anybody can go down, especially in the higher weight classes. I think it's whether you were able to get back up and recover or not that's different. I know Joshua gets back up and doesn't recover very quickly, so he's probably a really bad example. But I just think like people put that chinny label on people sort of like prematurely and for evidence that it's kind of like, for me, inconclusive and incomplete.
I think it may be to do with the weight as well. He's very tight at 175 as well.
He's a big lump, and he's not tall, but he's a fucking lump, isn't he?
He's a unit, yeah. He's a proper unit.
Proper unit. I can see him. I mean, if you look at somebody like Lunga Makabu, he's not tall either, but you know he won a world title at cruiserweight. I think Yarde will move up at some point. He's a lump and a half, isn't he?
I don't know if Yarde's going to be able to deal with cruiserweight, you know. The guys at cruiserweight now are guys who are walking around at, 6'3", 6'4", nearly 16 stone. They're basically the heavyweights of 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Yarde he's small, and he fights with he almost fights with a tall man style. You know, he's very fundamentals first. He likes to get his jab going. You know, if you stuck him in there with someone like an Usyk, I think he'd be, obviously Usyk is super elite, but if you stuck him in with like a Mike Perez or someone, I think he'd be badly outgunned, you know.
I thought his jab was really good, though. His jab's really good. It's really snappy. Look, I mean, I think, until a guy kind of like, look, I don't think height alone. I think height is really what you're talking about, isn't it? And I don't think height alone is a reason that he couldn't survive at a higher weight class. I think he would probably be shorter than a lot of the guys, but he would also probably be stockier than a lot of the guys. And sometimes that can carry you through, you know.
But it kind of depends on the style. Like a Mike Tyson in the heavyweight division could still survive because of, you know, the unique style you bring. But what you can't do is fight a Vladimir Klitschko style if you're only 5'10". And my suggestion is that Yard is one of these fighters who does like to sort of jab and move. You know, he's very lateral movement, get the jab going, you know, uses range, uses distance. And I think he will struggle to implement that sort of style up against the bigger guys.
I think you're probably right, but I think at this stage he hasn't had to show any other elements of his game, and I think it's entirely possible that he could, if he had to, become a bit more versatile fighter. It's not to say he totally transformed himself into a different style of fighter, but so far he's kind of like he's dealt with everybody he's fought quite easily. We don't know that he hasn't got some other tools in his box. So you might be right though. If he fights like that, he probably will find it very difficult.
Yeah. Okay, let me ask about Jeff Horn versus Gary Corcoran. Who saw that?
No.
Anyone else?
Yep, I saw it.
Yeah, good stuff. What was your take on that one?
I thought Corcoran did a good show, kind of what I expected. When he dragged him into a fight, it was close. But when Horn ironically boxed, he was a better boxer. So kind of what to be expected. Horn is a tough guy and he's massive at the weight. So he'll give an awful lot of guys a hard time because he's got a very high tempo. He's a top 10 welterweight probably. The bottom end is a top 10. Him and Sean Porter that'd be a rough fight. That would just be like an absolute fucking war. That's the kind of fight I'd like to see. I think if Bud fights him, Bud will absolutely school him because he's full of flaws. He's quite awkward, but he's fast and he's big and tough.
Absolutely, and that takes you a long way. I agree. I thought Corcoran performed with credit, but was a level, if not 2 levels below, and it was competitive for parts. But I thought Horn, proved to be a very worthy winner, and I agree. He's probably bottom half of the top 10. Yeah, I agree. Fantastic. Before we move on, has anyone got anything more they would like to add on any of last week's boxing?
What about your man, one of the Smith brothers, getting his ear chopped off?
Good point. There was that card in the States, wasn't there? Salido lost. I think Tevin Farmer lost. Stephen Smith lost an ear. Well, I believe the ear has actually made a full recovery, thankfully. But I haven't actually seen any of that card. Jet, was it good?
Yeah, fairly decent. Smith started slow. Francisco Vargas kind of just put his foot on the pedal and in those early rounds, and Smith was fighting a losing battle with the ear. So obviously Vargas got that. Probably get another big fight against one of the other guys in the 130-pound division. Who was the Tevin Farmer? I thought he won that fight, but he kind of coasted in some of the rounds, and yeah, it was a poor decision, obviously, with Ogawa getting the belt. But that's the way boxing goes. It would have been good if Farmer won, then we could have seen Farmer versus Davis. But obviously that's not on the cards. He'd probably get a rematch now. And Salido lost. Yeah, that was a good war, man. That was a really, really, really good fight. Exciting fight against Miguel Roman. And Roman hopefully gets a big fight as well. He's been in the game for a long time, and Salido's obviously retired. So he retired in his post-fight interview. So best of luck to him.
Salido's got to be a bit sick, though, don't you think? He's like before Mariaga, he was offered 900,000, which would have been easily his career high payday to fight Lomachenko again, and he turned it down, and then he's gone and got beat. So I think he'd probably be pretty sick about that.
Yeah, that's why I think he'll still be back. I still suspect that Lomachenko fight might happen one day. I know Salido isn't getting any younger, but I still think that may happen.
I think he might do as well. I think a lot of people call for that, but boxers' egos play a big part in how these things go, I believe.
Yeah, I'd still like to see that fight, just because
yeah, me too.
I think it'd be a good part of the Lomachenko story if that were to happen. I'm going to ask another question. Actually, I'm just going to really throw a curveball in here and mix it up. Who would win? Lomachenko currently versus Floyd when Floyd was operating at 130.
Oh, I've heard this. I've heard because it was Dan Raphael said.
BG, you cheeky bastard, mate.
Yeah, no warning. My instinct is always to go with Floyd, but it's not a confident pick.
I mean, put it this way, lads. If Floyd was to fight Lomachenko, that would be the best name on Floyd's resume.
Yeah. I was just about to say that. Floyd was a beast at 130, but he never came across he never came across anybody remotely like Lomachenko. I don't think anybody has.
Well, like Pacquiao.
Nah, Manny Pacquiao would be a bigger name than Lomachenko.
He would be.
Well, Pacquiao though was past it. Floyd never went near a prime elite fighter. He's got no elite fighter on his record.
Correct.
So all this stuff about the best ever is you can never call a guy the best ever when he's never fought anyone.
Floyd Mayweather has never fought anyone. Are you joking?
Yeah, he's never fought an elite. He's never fought a prime elite fighter. Name me his best win.
Here we go.
We're not talking about a guy who's 5 years past it. We're talking about his best, the prime guy that he fought. You can fill the Hall of Fame with all the prime fighters that Floyd didn't fight when he could have.
Look.
You're saying like Cotto was past it, Pacquiao was past it, De La Hoya was past it. Was Ricky Hatton past it?
Ricky Hatton was from a lower weight division brought up.
He brought Ricky Hatton up. Look, I mean, the thing is, if you look at it, just take the Pacquiao example, yeah. He dragged that out, Floyd, for fucking, what was it, about 5 years? You got to do this, you got to do that, and then fought him once he'd been like in loads of wars. He'd been fucking sparked clean out by Marquez, and in the end didn't make him do that fucking testing anyway. So he could have fucking fought him in the first place. If you actually analyze Floyd's career, if you actually look into it, Tom is absolutely right. He either drained, sort of like waited until they were past their best or whatever it might be, or got them when they were young. If you look at Canelo was inexperienced and stuff like that. He hasn't. I don't think his resume is as fantastic as some people make it out. Don't get me wrong; he's got a lot of good names on his resume, but if you look a little closer, it's a different story.
Look, just like last week, we slagged Cotto for his best win was a pass to Shane Mosley. Floyd has the same thing. Like, if you actually think about all the fighters that Floyd were active in Floyd's division when he fought, all of the ones that he avoided are better than the ones he fought. Like, if you want, you go back, you've got Barrera, you've got Morales, you've got Prince Nassim, you've got Kostitsu, you've got Zab Judah before he took a loss and got knocked out. Like, you've got Shane Mosley, you've got, the list goes on and on. Paul Williams, Margarito, Manny Pacquiao, all the good fighters are in his division. Remember, Floyd got all this praise for winning at 154. He never fought somebody at 154. He never fought Marvila. All of the guys.
He did, Irish. He did. I think Paul would agree with me. Conor McGregor.
That's true. Yeah,
he did take on.
The only.
That's true.
That's true. That actually negates a lot of what we're saying, to be honest. So, well done.
Diego Corrales.
Well, Corrales beat the shit out of him, as somebody just said in the text box.
Yeah, Corrales won the first fight. Now, maybe Floyd an injury, but Corrales clearly won that first fight. But Floyd schooled him in the return. Like, Corrales is not like an elite fighter, no, I don't think.
I think Marcus Maidana beat him as well. Look, Floyd's an all-time great. He is an all-time great. But he didn't
fight Corrales twice.
What?
Floyd didn't fight Corrales twice, did he?
Sorry, Castillo. We're talking Castillo. Corrales wasn't an elite fighter. Corrales was not an elite fighter. Corrales was a good fighter, but he was nowhere elite at all. Like, all the killers I've named, Floyd never fought one of them in the prime. He fought one or two in the post-prime. That's it. And sometimes very past their prime. So Floyd is an excellent fighter, but his resume is the most overrated resume in world boxing. There is not a fighter that gets praised like Floyd who has never fought one in their prime. He's never come close.
I can think of some.
Who?
What about the question then? Who would you pick? Floyd at 130 when he was active at 130 versus Lomachenko?
I think it's a 50-50 fight. That's the way I put it. Two excellent fighters. If anything, Loma might even have the edge because he's so unorthodox. Floyd didn't do well against unorthodox fighters like Maidana. You know, it was the unorthodox ones that could give Floyd more trouble. So, you know, Loma might even have a slight advantage.
I think Floyd would have had the power advantage at that weight.
Yeah, definitely Floyd had power.
Yeah, but I think it's a 50-50 fight as well. I don't think it's as sort of ridiculous a thing to say as a lot of people kind of made out. I think it was Dan Raphael said that, but it's interesting, but it's bullshit at the same time because it's never going to happen. So, you know.
It never is. It never is. But
here, somebody in the chat now is saying that Corrales was a killer. Corrales wasn't a killer. Corrales was getting beat the shit up by Castillo, and he came back from nowhere to beat him. And also, Canelo wasn't a killer, and neither was Cotto. Cotto had gotten his face dissembled by Manny Pacquiao before he fought Floyd. And also, Canelo wasn't a killer. Canelo, before that, had scraped past an aged Shane Mosley. So, like, you know, none of these guys that are supposedly his best names, none of them were killers. They were just good fighters.
What about Ricky Hatton? Or are you saying
Ricky Hatton is... The weight, a 7 pounds difference. Like, Ricky Hatton went up and fought him. And Ricky Hatton did all right against Floyd. You know, Ricky Hatton won 2 or 3 rounds out of 8 or 9 against Floyd. I think Ricky did quite well. But remember, Floyd brought him up. I think, anyway, Floyd is definitely a better fighter than Ricky Hatton. But let's look at what Ricky Hatton's best win was. Ricky Hatton's best win was against Acosta Tszyu, who was basically 35 or 6. You know, his retirement fight.
Yeah.
You know, so Ricky Hatton had one good performance against Acosta Tszyu. And then after that, look at his other performances. None of them are that great. You know, Ricky Hatton may have been a very popular fighter and an exciting kind of brawling style. But Ricky did, you know, look at those other ones. He bet Paulie Malignaggi. He was lucky to get the decision against Corrales. Is it Corrales?
Yeah.
It is, yeah.
And is it Collazo?
And Collazo. That's right, Chad.
Sorry, yeah.
No,
you know, so it's not like Ricky is like an all-time great. Ricky's just a popular fighter.
Yeah. What about does the Canelo win not look better with time?
The Canelo win is probably his best win.
Because he whitewashed Canelo, didn't he?
He did. He toyed with Canelo, but that's a very young Canelo, and he drained the shit out of Canelo as well. You know, Canelo was like, you know, a walking zombie for that fight. But he did, and like he absolutely schooled him. But, you know, if you think about it, like, it was perfect matchmaking for Floyd because Canelo tried to box with a boxer. And, you know, he's never going to win that. So Floyd knew that he was a better boxer and that Canelo is not a brawler or, a guy who really puts it down. So
the thing is,
it was
matchmaking. When you look back at their resume, there's other fighters like, a few examples are coming to my mind. Like, they may not be as held as higher esteem as Floyd, but you could look back and you could say Joe Calzaghe. Joe Calzaghe is not an all-time great fighter. He's just a good British fighter. Vitaly Klitschko, again, you know, they're just not all-time great fighters because they fought nobody. Mike Tyson
is different because Mike Tyson fought everybody and cleaned out his division. And he went after everybody. And when he was shit, he still went and fought everybody.
He has to be totally different. Does Tyson have wins over elite names at their peak? I don't know if he does.
Well, like, people don't consider any of the fighters he fought as elite. You know, I think a lot of that is just time, is time, and people forget. But Mike Tyson was so unbelievably dominant. Like, he unified it all in, like, when he was like, 22 or something. It was amazing. No one's ever come, like, you know, say, for example, compare Floyd, right, who defensive fighter, to the last great American defensive fighter, you know, who was Pernell Whitaker. Pernell Whitaker fought everybody. And if he didn't beat everybody, he was robbed. right? Pernell Whitaker's resume is much better, even though like there's 2 losses on or whatever. It's much better resume than Floyd Mayweather's. Floyd's a mirage. He's like a Twitter fighter or a fucking TMZ fighter. He's not to be held in the same regard as people like, you know, the Hitman Hearns, Marvin Hagler, or these guys who fought everybody, or Duran. He's nowhere close. No, like compare him to Loma. Loma's actually looking to fight the best guys. Floyd has run away from him.
I mean,
Yeah.
if you talking about Mike Tyson there, I mean, like, I would say Spinks at the time was considered a top heavyweight. He was unbeaten. He was considered an elite of the heavyweight division. Maybe Larry Holmes. I mean, don't forget Larry Holmes went on and won a few decent fights after Mike Tyson absolutely iced him. I know he was getting old as well. Mike Tyson I mean, like, I would hold Mike Tyson in higher esteem than Floyd Mayweather, to be completely honest.
Yeah, absolutely. And here, there's people in the chat are saying Calzaghe is the greatest British fighter ever. What type of drugs are they on?
I think Calzaghe is either the top British fighter ever or the second. I think he's in the top 2.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, who has he ever beaten? Calzaghe, give me a prime fighter.
Kessler.
Who? Sorry, you broke up there, Gossip. Say again.
Kessler.
Lacey.
Kessler and Lacey. You come on, like, you know, compare him to Lennox Lewis. It's just chalk and cheese.
Well,
Lennox Lewis went to America. Lennox went to America and he fought the top guys consistently over a long period of time. And Joe Calzaghe, you know, fought people who are past it or no good.
Yeah.
Kessler's his only big win. All the rest of them are Pesker and Hopkins is a fairly good win.
And Roy Jones.
Roy Jones that's not a good win at the time, Paul. Come on. Roy Jones was beaten by everybody at that time. Anybody with a pulse was beating Roy Jones.
I think if you look at Calzaghe, you have to say he's and if you look at the way he fought and you look at his resume, I think you have to say he's top 3 British fighters of all time. I think
like Nigel Benn has a better resume.
No,
he does.
Come on,
his best wins beat Joe Calzaghe's wins. He bet McClelland, who was an absolute killer. He was a stone cold killer, and he bet Aran Barkley, who was a top American fighter who had beaten I forget who Barkley had beaten.
Oh, my take is that losses are also part of resume now. You know, the fact that losses cannot be ignored when we're discussing someone's resume.
Yeah. And if you look at McClelland, the McClelland win, I think you have to look at that as a separate thing because the guy got a brain injury. I mean, who knows what would have happened towards the very end of that fight if that hadn't happened? If you look at Gerald McClelland, but he was like making.
But Ben gave it to him.
Yeah, Ben gave it to him. Yeah, definitely. But I'm saying like. That's like a freakish thing. Like you could take punishment like that 99 times out of 100 and not get that brain injury. McClelland was making weird motions with his mouth from about 2 rounds before he actually collapsed. He like that fight stands alone. I don't think you can really.
No, but it's still a win. Like Ben was unbelievable in that fight. Like McClelland was a killer like no other killer really at that time. He was unbelievable. He killed the killer's killer when he took out Jackson. You know, Julian Jackson, they say the hardest puncher of all time. And he got iced by McClelland. And McClelland took his shots. You know, like, so McClelland was a killer's killer. And Ben took him out. Like, that's better than any win that Joe Calzaghe has.
Yeah, one of my
just simple as that.
One of my biggest boxing memories when I was growing up, and it's always been a powerful memory, is because Joe Calzaghe was a bit of a hero in my household, right? And it was kind of explained to me, and I was a bit of a youngster at the time, that this American guy was coming over, and he was like a Mike Tyson type figure. And, you know, Joe was probably going to lose. And, this guy was coming over, and he was like this unstoppable force. And I remember sitting up watching this fight, not quite believing what I was seeing. And look, I was a child. I was uneducated in boxing. Yeah, I didn't understand the hype. But what I saw was Joe Calzaghe doing maneuvers on Lacey that I can only compare to Neo from The Matrix. You know, the most defensively elusive person from the inside. seen at the time, and the punches he was landing, the volume, the output, the speed, the hand speed, I was just blown away by it.
Yeah, one of the worst beatings I've ever seen a British fighter dish out. I mean, he fucking smashed the fuck out of Lacey for 12 rounds.
But the thing is, Calzaghe didn't have an ounce of the talent that Nassim had, and Nassim would dance guys out at a low weight. Nassim had way more. Like, you're talking about displays of talent. Like, Nassim is the most underachieving British fighter nearly of all time. He was such an amazing talent. Nassim should have gone down there with, you know, he should really have, if he had it mentally, he would have gone down with Muhammad Ali on levels of talent, because Nassim had everything. And like, he made Joe Calzaghe look like a walk in the park. If we're going to talk about like performances by British fighters.
Yeah, Nassim was a bit before my time, if I'm honest.
I think Lennox, Calzaghe, and Naz are the top 3 British fighters of all time. I don't.
But like, we can't judge because we don't know these lads from earlier on. I don't know the British fighters from before the 70s. I don't know any of them, to be honest, really. And,
we're not historians, though. I've got no interest in reading encyclopedias and listening stories.
I know you don't. I know you don't, Gossip.
Yeah,
but like,
we could talk about some boxer who fought, you know, before there was any TV that nobody's ever seen throw a punch. You know, and some people love that sort of stuff. But you know,
well, for example, right, the fella who beat Sugar Ray Robinson, what's his name?
Randolph Turpin.
Randolph Turpin probably has to be up there. That's probably the single best win by a British fighter of all time. You know, so like, there's other fighters there that you can probably get film on that we haven't seen too much. But you know, like, we shouldn't just say only start counting them from the 1990s because we're all only born in the 70s or whatever. So you know, but you know, Jeff Lacey was not a good fighter, and that's been shown by his extremely poor form since he got beaten.
Yeah, I think. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you that Jeff Lacey is a great fighter, but I think Joe Calzaghe ended him that night. I think Joe Calzaghe took what was the equivalent of a Mike Tyson and beat the career out of him.
Yeah,
and when I say Mike Tyson, I mean, you know, I don't mean in terms of talent. I mean in terms of hype. You know, and as I say, I was a child, so I can't say I was like properly clued up. But the
gossip. If you think that Jeff Lacey had the hype of Mike Tyson, I don't know. You need to go. No, I think you need to like just quit and close down the channel. You know,
he's young. He's only young. You don't remember. But look, the thing is,
I know I'm slagging, but like, Jeff Lacey was, even boxing fans didn't know that much about Jeff Lacey. He won a vacant IBF title and defended a couple of times against fairly reasonably low opposition. And when he came over, if you remember the odds in that fight, it wasn't like Joe Calzaghe was a 10-1 underdog. He would be. It was a 2-1 fight.
Yeah, I mean, the hype around Mike Tyson was a million times that. I mean, the hype around Mike Tyson was just ridiculous in the 80s.
It was bigger than AJ.
Yeah, it was way bigger than AJ. It was 10 times the size of the AJ height. But here's the thing, yeah, Lacey. If you say like everything he did afterwards, like if you look at everything he did afterwards, like that tells you what kind of a fighter he is. I think the beating that he took off Calzaghe is certainly part of the reason why Lacey was never the same again. He fucking hiding of his life off
and his corner should have taken him out with 2 rounds to go. He took or the ref should have stopped it, because he took, a very bad hiding. And, I think his corner, no wonder he never was good again, or if he was ever any good, because, his corner really let him down very badly.
I agree with that, totally.
See, yeah, when we're on the subject, and I know we're hideously off topic, but I'm quite enjoying it, so I hope you don't mind me indulging. So I'm not someone who says you need to have an O. Yeah, I'm not this whole Floyd Mayweather, you've got to be 50-0. His achievements are greater than Joe Calzaghe's. Having said that, Lennox Lewis showed immense vulnerability on several occasions, to the point that he was knocked unconscious by lesser heavyweights, heavyweights who will not go down in history as great heavyweights. Right. My point is, I rate Lennox Lewis as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. I am a huge Lennox Lewis fan and advocate. But if Lennox Lewis fought any heavyweight of note now, you wouldn't rule them out against him. You know, you'd think that anyone's got a chance against Lennox Lewis. He can get caught, he can get lazy, and yeah, if he gets caught, he's been stopped once or twice by the likes of Hassan Rahman and Oliver McCall. And my take is that, call me a casual, my take is that does somewhat damage a legacy. This is why I say losses are important when evaluating a resume. You know, for me, whilst Lennox achieved more, there's also losses that take a lot away.
Look, I'll say losses are important, but not as important as your wins. And you define a fighter by who your wins are. Roy Jones, the reason why Roy Jones is the best of his generation and why he's a vastly better fighter than Hopkins is because he schooled Hopkins when they fought. And he schooled James Toney when they fought. Not even close. 2 Hall of Famers, and he schooled them. He made them look like he was playing with them. And Lennox Lewis, you know, you go on about Vladimir Klitschko. Like, Lennox Lewis just would have absolutely destroyed Vladimir Klitschko. Just a much better quality fighter. Because he, you know,
the problem with Lennox, though, mate. Look, Lennox is a better fighter than Vladimir, right? I'm not going to tell you he isn't. But you can't say Lennox would have absolutely destroyed Vladimir, because he didn't absolutely destroy Hassan Rahman. He didn't absolutely destroy Oliver McCall. He did in the rematches, but, you know, these guys wiped him out.
He did. He destroyed both of them in the rematches. And, like, the only reason why, you know, someone like Lennox is because he was overconfident, thought he didn't have to do anything with these guys. He was on a different level. When Lennox was serious, Lennox was one of the best heavyweights of all time. And, you know...
It's like me saying if Degale had been serious against Truax.
No, because Degale doesn't have the ability that Lennox had. Degale is not the fighter that people were making out in the most piss-poor division.
People saying Lennox legacy isn't an excuse. The fact is that Lennox did go out and he did get wiped out by those guys.
Just like Vladimir did.
True.
Yeah, and Lennox Lewis came back immediately and sparked them and went on to spark everybody in the division that was around him that he could. And he went to try to fight everybody. He sought them out. He went to America and he made his name and fought all the top fighters, as opposed to like Joe Calzaghe sitting in Wales, you know, fighting nobodies. Fucking Marco Veit 8 times in a row. And the world's with a WBO title that at the time wasn't considered a world title, remember. That's the equivalent of a WBF title now, or an IBO title. You know, so we can't compare his resume versus Lennox. Like, all the killers that Lennox fought that people think nowadays aren't killers, like Tua. Tua was a fucking bona fide killer when Lennox fought him. You know? And people kind of forget that kind of shit, you know?
Yeah. Interesting discussion. Maybe someday we'll have to do a all-time top British list when we've got a bit more time. But
here, I have an idea for a show. We should have a list and we should get people involved, and we should do a section on all the top fighters at the time in the weight divisions that Floyd was in that he did not fight, and then we can compare all of them to the people he fought. And I'm telling you, it'll be a fucking Hall of Fame resume on one side, and on the other side, it'll be Bum of the Month fucking club.
There you go. Paul said, Paul in chat, not Paul on the panel, says that Iris killed BG in this one. Maybe he did, but that's why I was quite enjoying the conversation, to be honest. There's you know, one thing Iris does have over me, and he's got very few things over me, but one thing he does have over me is he's about 60 years older than me. So some of that knowledge and the education helps my young brain.
Maybe over Christmas and that we could do something a little bit different, because there won't be a lot of boxing on.
We could do. I mean, Billy Joe is the last fight of the year, really, isn't it? So there's certainly some room to do something, maybe even on next week. But we'll discuss it offline. Guys, let me move on to the news in the sport, and we'll just I'll just read through a few stories, and anyone who wants to jump in can jump in. Let me just ask Jet, actually, Kell Brook versus Rabchenko. Jet, what was your reaction to that fight when it was announced?
Solid comeback fight, I think. It's you know, he's testing the waters at 154. Don't know if he's going to go back down after this fight or he's going to stay there. Yeah, it's a solid test. A guy who he should be on paper Obviously, Rabchenko's lost to Tony Harrison and Anthony Mundine, and you know he's obviously a level below Kell Brook. But that, you know, we've seen it. We just saw it just this weekend. If you take your eye off the ball, you're coming back off injuries, a long layoff. You know, Kell Brook may be susceptible to taking a loss here. You never know. I'm not saying he is going to lose, but it's plausible. You know, it's plausible. He's, I mean, obviously 2 damaged eye sockets, fluctuates in weight. You know, so yeah, let's see how he looks against Rabchenko. That would be the most interesting thing. If he looks good winning, then we obviously know he's, you know, got a few fights left in him, a few big fights left in him. If he doesn't, then, you know, he might have to look at his position in the sport. Definitely.
Do you have a take on whether he could be a better fighter at 154, Jet?
I do think he can sustain his offense in the later rounds at 154. But again, the guys at 150, the top guys at 154 are, you know, they're hard work. Charlo, WBC, IBF, Jarrett Hurd, who's massive. Arislani Lara, who's a very, very, very skilled fighter. And those are the top guys you're looking at. Saddam Ali, obviously, he's won a version of the belt. If I'm Kell Brook and Eddie Hurd and Kell's team, go after Saddam Ali. I know, I think Liam Smith's actually the mandatory. So, you know, if it's Smith versus Ali, he could fight the potential winner and see where he can go from there. If you know, that route is possible. But I would, if I was in his team, I would advise him stay away from the top guys at 154, the 3 guys aforementioned.
Interesting. Anyone else on the panel have any comments on the return of Kell Brook?
He should have fought the egg.
He should have fought the egg. Yeah.
I just want to see the egg versus the pig.
Oh,
that would be
could happen.
Tear up.
That would be fucking brilliant.
I reckon the pig will win that.
I think the pig would probably win it. Yeah, he's a bigger puncher.
Is too defensively inept to deal with the power at 154. Actually,
especially the power of the pig. The porcine power is unbelievable when you apply it. No other pig has so many different famous cuts of meat in it. You've got bacon, you've got ham, you've got gammon, you know, you got all different types. You got rashers, you got sausages, prosciutto, yeah. You got krushkins for the Irish listening, yeah.
Chorizo.
So, you know, chorizo. There you go. It keeps on giving. It's pork belly. There you go. There's no other beast like the pig.
And then there's pig's feet if you really hard.
Yeah, krushkins. That's krushkins, Paul. I was ahead of you.
There you go.
You know, my grandfather on the Irish side, and this is a true story. I don't know if this is what people used to do back in the day. He used to go for the pig's head.
Yeah, I've eaten pig's head myself. It's actually not too bad.
I've eaten pig. Oh. My granddad used to eat pig's feet, and he used to eat tongue, cow's tongue, ox tongue.
Cow's tongue.
Yeah.
Do you ever read like Enid Blyton books? You know those famous 5? They're always eating tongue sandwiches.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like what?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah. But like pig's face is actually nice. And you can eat the ear and the inner ear. The inner ear is kind of like fatty. It's kind of a bit weird. But offal is actually pretty tasty, you know.
This podcast conversation is going a little bit like.
But you know what? Now we're on it. One of my favourite things to eat in the world is black pudding.
There you go. Pig's blood. Nothing like it.
Yeah.
The best black pudding I've ever had is Argentinian black pudding.
You ever had white pudding?
Unbelievable.
White pudding.
Yeah, white pudding. Yeah.
I've had white pudding.
It's an Irish delicacy, white pudding.
Yeah.
We
used to bring it back when we'd go to visit family and that. We'd bring it back to here because you couldn't buy it here. I think you can buy it here now, but I
think you can get it now. Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't in them days.
Guys, if we don't deserve a thumbs up for that, what do we deserve a thumbs up for?
Yeah, you know.
Irish lessons for the week. Hashtag that.
Let me steer it back towards the news in boxing. Look, there's a topic here, and to be honest, we could discuss it for an hour. We could discuss it for a minute. I prefer to discuss it for a minute, really, because, you know, it's been a never-ending saga. Tyson Fury, you know, the statement creates as many questions as it does answered, but the guy is cleared to fight again from a banning perspective. He needs to reapply for his license. Or a license with someone else, and he can fight again. In the interest of time, maybe best we avoid the whole saga because it's been covered before and it'll be covered again. But presumably massively excited to have him back in the sport and just sort of hopeful that this could be a sign of good things to come for 2018.
Yeah.
Well, I haven't been so excited for a boxer to return since Povetkin came back from his last drug fail. we should have a list of who was our favorite drug cheat. I have a question for you. Who do you prefer of these drug cheats? Do you prefer Hughie Fury or Tyson Fury?
I prefer Tyson.
Yeah.
The two.
So are we going to talk about Tyson Fury in the same context as we talk about, say, Luis Ortiz or Povetkin? Or are we going to let him get away with it?
I think that because of other factors, which I do not fully understand, the case is incredibly complex and there are more twists and turns that mean that a man of my limited intellect can A, not understand it, and can B, not hope to understand it. So I've taken the approach, having had many conversations about it, approach of complex for me to understand it. I cannot make.
It's not complex. They both failed their drug test. They both had a level that exceeded the threshold allowed. So they both failed it, and they both got bans for 2 years.
Yeah. No, no, I don't think that's true. I do not think that's true.
That is true.
I do not.
That was in Tyson's statement.
No, it actually wasn't.
It was.
Tom. No, be careful because it wasn't. I do not think they were banned for the failed nandrolone test. Nandrolone is a body that is a substance that can naturally occur in the body. Elevated levels of that, it would be impossible to prove
that's incorrect.
Supplement.
That's incorrect.
I don't want to get into.
That's like I've been looking the science up today, right? I've been looking the science up today. There is
Tom,
WADA have a limit. WADA have a limit, and they set it.
I don't know, but I don't believe they were banned. And Tom, how could Hughie have fought Joseph Parker if they were banned for 2 years?
Why did they say in the thing that was released? Why did they say they accepted a 2-year ban then? How can they accept a 2-year ban if they weren't banned?
Tom, they clearly weren't banned because of ban. Hughie Fury fought.
Why did they sign off on saying the two of them were banned for 2 years?
I think
they weren't banned.
I think Tyson was banned.
What does that mean? Is it a ban or is it not a ban? Because it was, it was either a ban or it can't be a ban and not a ban.
My understanding is that Tyson Fury was banned, but that was due to the drug test that he didn't take. Do you remember the UCAD test that turned up?
No, that's not right. That's not what it says.
Well, Hughie Fury clearly wasn't banned.
Hughie was banned.
I've got the statement in front of me, and to quote it verbatim, it says, the proceedings have therefore been resolved on the following basis. The anti-doping rule violations based on the reported presence of elevated levels of nandrolone metabolites are upheld. The refusal charge is withdrawn. Hughie and Tyson Fury each receive a 2-year period of ineligibility, and their results from their respective fights in Feb 2015 are disqualified. No adverse analytical findings or adverse passport findings were reported in respect of any of the urine and or blood samples collected from blah, blah, blah. Their competition results after Feb 2015 are not disqualified. Taking into account the delays in results management, that means charges were not brought in respect to the nandrolone findings until June 2016, and the provisional suspensions that they have already served. The 2-year period of ineligibility is backdated to December 2015. So my reading of that is that they were not banned at the time, but they have accepted a retrospective ban.
They were both brought up for a failed test for nandrolone. Nandrolone can appear naturally in the blood from exercise, but at levels that are excessively below what that level is that they registered. And so they did fail their doping test. The shenanigans that happened around how it was managed is a separate issue. but they failed that test. Nobody's denying that they failed that test. Not even the Furies are denying they failed that test. And it says that they both have basically served their suspensions already, which means they were suspended. And to me, a suspension is a ban. I don't know what other kind of way. We're getting into semantics if we're not saying that it is. So what's actually happened?
Someone's banned if they fought. He's actually had a world title fight during the ban.
Yes, but that's to do with how UKAD have fucked it up. But it is not denying the fact that they have failed a blood test, both of them, the same time, which is amazingly suspicious. Like they just had doped the two of them. And they failed that ban, failed that thing. And they have served a 2-year suspension. So what happened with them fighting at the same time and that is very odd. But what cannot be disputed is the fact that they were banned. Whether they fought during the ban for legal reasons or whatever, but they have served a suspension and they both failed a test and they have both signed off to this. So they've both signed off legally to say they failed the test and have served the ban. Right?
Well,
so
I disagree.
If we look at
Tyson Fury,
look at what, like, he did fail the test. There is no denying that they failed that test for Nandrolone. And Nandrolone is in there with WADA. They have all these things with specific limits whereby you pass it means you're definitely up to something. They're not close to where your natural level's in. They're usually like many multiples higher from where it was. And they failed it by a factor of 2 as far as I can remember. So they failed that test and a ban or a suspension has been served. Now, compare this one to the one that happened with Luis Ortiz, who just did it and it failed for the fight against Deontay Wilder. We had even the VADA guy, you know, who runs VADA, coming out and saying like that the drug that he was taking was not and all of his blood passport and all that stuff did not indicate any type of thing, and it indicated an error. So you had like the guy who's in chat who set up VADA to try and catch these guys, saying that he should have been fought. And look at all the abuse Ortiz gets from all these British fans, you know, people, and compared to people saying, "Oh, we're delighted to have Tyson back." Like, I'm a massive Tyson fan, but he's a drug cheat, lads.
Can I?
And like denying it is just bullshit.
Can I just say something? I think there's one of the big reasons why like people don't, you know, people give Ortiz a load of shit and, you know, don't give Tyson a load of shit. Right. One of the reasons is I'd say most fans, especially casual fans, don't sort of like bother going into all the details and researching it, and you know, they just know what they've heard from here, there, or wherever. That's the first thing. That's probably why there's a big difference between the two there. The second thing is there's been enough sort of like weird stuff surrounding this Tyson Fury saga to say that I kind of agree with BG here. I think we just don't know enough about what's actually happened with all the various sort of like fucking strange shit that's gone on, the amount of time it's gone on, weird statements, it's going to be solved now and now it's not. Like, I just don't think we know enough to be able to sit here and definitely look. I've got my opinion, but
I would say one thing, Paul, is
just that is my opinion.
Sorry. Yeah, no, fair enough. I'd say one thing, and I know I'm always giving out about drug cheating, and I'm always harping on about it. I consider all of them to be on it. I don't think we should give one person a pass and another person not. One reason I could give for why there's been such weirdness around this test is because, you know, Peter Fury is a man of means, and he's had top lawyers on that case for a long time. And when the lawyers get involved in these things, you know, look what's happening now with Chris Froome. He was still cycling because they had their lawyers involved in the case. And it's only that it was leaked that now that he's actually probably going to get his ban, and that similar tactics are used by powerful athletes all the time. They use the law to come into the case so they can stymie these drug things, and they can hold it in the courts for a while. The fact that it's unusual and hasn't been dealt with in a fashion that's kind of normal for low-level athletes is a very good chance that it could be linked to legal action on behalf of the Furies. So like they apply the legal pressure, and then they say, oh, look at all the shit that's happened to us because of this legal pressure. You know,
the truth is, you know, doesn't matter if Tyson Fury's done drugs and that sort of stuff. Hello?
Yeah, you're coming through, mate.
Okay, cool. Yeah, he draws ratings. He draws ratings, and you know it sells. That's what it is. That's the be all and end all.
And as well as that, at the end of the day, even if we say that he did, yeah, he's been out of the sport for 2 years. You know, like now he's back. Do I think that that's necessarily right? I don't know, but it's certainly fair because that's how everybody else is dealt with. All right, some people might get longer, some people get shorter, most people get shorter than 2 years. So kind of like maybe he is, maybe he ain't. But one thing I do know is he's back in the sport now, and that is definitely a good thing for the heavyweight division. It's definitely for us.
But it's
Tom's saying things like, are we now going to treat him in the same light as Luis Ortiz? Are we now going to treat him in the same light as Alexander Povetkin? Well, the truth is he's already been treated much harder than those guys. You know, Luis Ortiz failed a drug test relatively recently, and he fought last Friday night. And he's now going to get a world title fight in his next fight. Alexander Povetkin had several drug controversies, and he fought even under those circumstances.
He fought
I'm sorry, but
knowing
I'm not run than that.
I'm sorry, but like, you know, we shouldn't be saying Tyson got it hard, right? We should be saying they got it soft.
To those guys, he's had it hard. You compared them to those guys. He's had it harder than those guys. Let's have it right.
Well, let's be straight about the Luis Ortiz one. Like, the guy who actually does the testing says he failed that on a technicality and that his bloods and everything. And he actually was putting forward the case he shouldn't be banned, and that and his bloods didn't show anything untoward. All that happened was that he didn't put in one medicine, and that they've met with him and his doctors and gone through it. So in the Ortiz recent case, I think that's very harsh to compare that to, say, Ortiz original case.
Ortiz might not.
We should not be comparing how Povetkin gets away with shit for how we should be treating these guys. You know, Tyson Fury failed a drugs test. He failed it. People say it's an elevated level. Look, nandrolone can be produced under certain circumstances in the human body, but nowhere close to the levels that exist there. And it's like saying that, oh, well, it's elevated levels, so it's not a fail. It's a fucking fail. It's like a guy who takes synthetic testosterone. We produce testosterone in our body. If you're taking synthetic testosterone and you got jacked up levels of testosterone, just because it's something that occurs in your body doesn't mean, oh, elevated. It means you failed the test. He's failed the test. All this other shit is bullshit. He's failed the test, and they've accepted a 2-year suspension served from the time. And all, like, everything else about how it happened, you know, that's kind of secondary. He's failed the test, like, and we should be treating him as a drugs cheat. Just like who gives the benefit of the doubt to your man from Sheffield? What's his name? Barry Kid Galahad. Who gives him the benefit of the doubt when he says, "Oh, my brother spiked my drink"? Everybody fucking laughs. Yet Tyson Fury can get away with saying, "Oh, I had a wild boar." That wild boar was a case that an athlete tried to bring up, I think in 2004 or 1999, 98 or 2004, saying they had wild boar, and it was thrown out. Yeah, so like, to me, eating wild boar, which is not an acceptable excuse, because you should know it if you don't, and it doesn't even exist. It's not even a defense. Why should we not give him the same slating we give Kid Galahad? He should get exactly the same.
I mean, what I will say is that, like, they obviously had some sort of leverage and some sort of power to wield in those negotiations with UCAB, because the way that statement's been released and the fact that they've just sort of, like, out of the blue done this like this says to me that, you know, both sides had sort of like some sort of leverage and some sort of power. And so I just don't think we know anywhere near enough about any of this situation to really be talking with any kind of authority on it. We just don't.
No, I completely agree. I don't think we have access to full visibility. And my take on it was that, you know, a few weeks before this statement was released, out that Tyson could get banned from 4 years. There was also stories that Tyson could sue UCAD for loss of earnings and put them out of business. So I think that was both sides flexing their muscles, both sides showing that they could have the other side over the barrel. And eventually what they've done is come to a compromise in the form of this.
Yeah, but remember, a 4-year, if you get done for an nandrolone, you're eligible for up to a 4-year ban. That's just a statement of the facts for the thing that they actually got caught for, right? Now, every drug cheat nearly, in my experience, we've had some bad ones in Ireland in our tea, like all of them have said, I didn't take the thing. No. Very rarely do people come out and say, yeah, no, I took that, yeah. Yeah, you're dead right, I took that. Oh, yeah, I did it to help myself. They just don't say it. They'll say, oh, if I did, it was a sample this, or it was a problem with tampering of the sample, blah, 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 blah. They all say it.
No one ever.
It means nothing. The fact that people say, I didn't take it, it's essentially like in an information theory point of view, it gives you no information because they all say it, regardless whether they've done it or not. So
let me be clear about what I'm saying. I'm not saying he's not a drugs cheat. I'm just
saying, I think people are giving him a bit of a leeway.
I don't know. I don't know.
People are saying it's not clear. It is clear. Look, read the statement. They've had a 2-year ban. They failed the test. And now they're eligible to box. That's all that thing means.
Can I just say, I think enough's been said on this now, and given that it's 10:30 and we still haven't discussed Saunders Lemieux, that maybe we could just move on because it's fucking boring me. To be fair,
I did say at the start we could spend an hour on it in a minute, and I was hoping to spend a minute, and then I heard an Irish voice booming over the airwaves.
And another thing.
Indeed. Let's do exactly what Paul suggested. I think that's good advice. Billy Joe Saunders versus Lemieux. The boxing gossip prediction is out on the channel already. I've gone Billy Joe Saunders to outbox David Lemieux. I am concerned about the scoring. I think Billy Joe Saunders on occasion has shown a negative style. I also think that, Billy Joe Saunders isn't the biggest puncher in the world, whereas Lemieux is a very big puncher. And I worry about that factor in front of away judges. But I have, on balance, gone for Billy Joe Saunders to win the fight against David Lemieux by boxing class. Jet, give us your prediction on this one, mate.
Yeah, I'd have to go Billy Joe Saunders. I think it's a tight fight in terms of if Billy Joe doesn't turn up prepared, motivated, that sort of stuff. But I think Billy Joe at his best, he seems to be back in love with the game. He seems to be firing on all cylinders. He looked, obviously the fight against Willie Monroe wasn't the best fight, but he looked he looked good for what it was worth. And I expect him to outbox David Lemieux quite soundly. Close but competitive, 8-4. But Lemieux's in there with a chance. He's a massive puncher. And, Billy Joe should not switch off. He's been in there with some good fighters and some big punchers. Andy Lee springs to mind. So, should just be on his toes, use his boxing ability and stay on the back foot and box. As some of the trainers now say, box from range and just do that. And he should pick up the win. But he should do it convincingly enough because he's in Canada. So you never know what the judges are looking for. And you always know the guy with the hometown advantage always has that extra spin in his step.
Interesting. Do you know what? I've spoken to a few people who tune into my channel from America and Canada, and a lot of the perception over there, and these are people who do know a bit about boxing, is that this is easy work for Lemieux. People just think Lemieux is going to destroy Saunders. They just think he's going to absolutely. But I see Saunders as a guy who may not look very good when you watch him on a highlights clip. But when you're actually in there with him, he's very, very hard to find judgment, very good evasiveness and movement. And I think he's a very, very tough man to beat. Paul, what's your take on this one?
I've been thinking about this one a little bit. I think Saunders at his best probably beats Lemieux. I don't know whether Billy Joe Saunders is going to be at his best anymore. I don't know whether whether kind of like, you know, like he hasn't looked great, and he looked a little bit better against Monroe. The fight before that, I can't remember. Akavov, was it? What was his name?
Yeah, Akavov.
Akavov, yeah. He looked pretty poor. I know Dominic Ingle has apparently turned things around for him and whatnot. My concern is, I think the Andy Lee that he fought was a slightly past his best Andy Lee. And if you look at everybody else I also have said, you know, Saunders has got a good chin. We look at Saunders as somebody that's got a good chin. I'm going to suggest he's never been in with anybody that hits remotely as hard as David Lemieux. I mean, if you look at like Eubank Jr., he's not a one-punch knockout artist. Fucking maybe Spike O'Sullivan, Nick Blackwell. These guys are they're not punchers on the level of a Lemieux. And I just wonder whether Lemieux might not be able to just take him out. I mean, if you look at the way Lemieux, the Curtis Stevens fight, Lemieux absolutely destroyed Stevens, destroyed him. I'm going to pick Lemieux. I think he might beat him. You know, I'm going to pick Lemieux.
Really? What, by knockout or on points?
By knockout.
Wow. Interesting. Is that confident or
no?
You know,
it's not confident. No, I mean, like as I say, I think if it was Billy Joe Saunders at his best, how old's Billy Joe Saunders? He's got to be 31.
I think he's 28, mate. I think he's still quite young.
Oh, is he 28? I thought he was.
Yeah.
I thought he was older than that.
I'll type it in just to double check, but I think he's
Okay, I think it was because he was in the Olympics the same year as James DeGale. I was kind of like thinking, same age. But yeah, I mean, look, I do think if he was at his best, he would probably win. But I just don't think he is. I think he's been, there's questions over his stamina and stuff. I'm going to go for Lemieux knocks him out late. That's my prediction.
Interesting. Okay, so Jet and I on Saunders, Paul on Lemieux. Tom, give us your take on this one.
I'm kind of with Paul, although I think that there's a good chance, there's a bit of a hometown decision here. They're paying them the money to come over. Lemieux's a bigger attraction over there, fight Canelo or something like that. Billy Joe doesn't have a good style. I think, he'll have to win 8-4, I think, to hope to get a 7-5. He might even need to win 9-3 to get the decision. So I think he's up against it. I think it's quite a 50-50 matchup, but I think, the politics of it, I don't see him getting it, to be honest with you. So I'm going to go for Billy Joe to not win, but I think, if it was at home in England, I'd take Billy Joe. But I think I'll go for Lemieux.
Interesting. Okay, we're split. We're split on the panel. I thought it was probably going to be more of a Billy Joe Saunders crowd here. But yeah, I do think the judging's a risk, actually. I do think the judging is a risk. I think it's a very risky fight, this, for Billy Joe Saunders to take. And frankly, I'm surprised he's taken it, given...
He's getting good money, though. He's getting $3 million for that fight. That's really good money. He won't get he probably won't get much more for fighting Golovkin.
True.
And
True. He seems very confident as well.
Yeah, he's an easier fight than Golovkin, And Canelo might be a bigger money fight. I think Billy Joe is dead right to take the fight because you get good money, and even if you lose a narrow fight, you'll have more fights and you'll be on America TV. And if you win, then you're really in a better negotiating seat because you've defeated a top name in America. So I think it's good boxing business by Billy Joe.
Interesting.
I disagree with that. I think it's a bad decision because the thing is, the only thing Billy Joe really has as far as leverage goes, if he wants to sort of before he retired to get like I don't know a Triple G fight or a Canelo fight, which would be way more money than Lemieux to fight Canelo. It's the belt. The belt's the only thing, but he hasn't got a name. He hasn't got a fan-friendly style. And I think if he goes over there and loses to Lemieux, I'm not sure where the big fights come for him after that, because what's he really got?
But he's not guaranteed big fights. Like, if you think about it, like, he's signed to fight Canelo and Triple G, I think, already. And neither he hasn't got the fights. So he could spend his time in England. If
he was to manage to hold on to that belt, the winner of Triple G Canelo was going to want to unify that division. They would see Billy Joe Saunders as an easy way of doing that. And I think that would be a much bigger payday. And so I just think he would be fair play to him for taking the fight. And I'm looking forward to seeing the fight, but I don't think it's necessarily good business.
But I think, like, the thing is with Billy Joe could lose to a random voluntary, because he's been pretty bad for the last few times. You know, he could actually lose and then he would get no big payday. Or, like, you know, if Golovkin beats Canelo in this match, then he'll fight Golovkin for the same money as he'll get against Lemieux. That's probably the most likely. Say again, Paul. What?
Not if he loses the title. And actually, I think the longer.
No, but I mean, if
wait is, the more likely it is that Canelo is going to beat Triple G, because Triple G is getting older. I think the longer it goes on, the more likely it is that it would be Canelo that he'd be fighting, and that would be a huge payday.
But also, I think Canelo doesn't give a crap about unifying divisions. He's a money man, and I think it's
money. I think it becomes about something else once you've got enough money.
Well, we'll see. You know,
yeah.
But this way he gets paid $3 million, and that's a lot of money, guys.
True.
You know, Kell Brook didn't get that for his kind of his face smashed in, probably. You know,
I think he did.
I thought he got more than that. I thought Kell Brook get 4 or 6.
Yeah,
that's what you hear, boys. But I very much doubt it.
Tom, you seem to be stating people's purses with utmost authority.
Yeah, no. That was $3 million. It's been said. He got $3 million. But how many pay-per-views did Brook Golovkin do? He didn't do a lot of pay-per-views.
Everything you say with like supreme confidence. Like,
yeah, because I'm totally right.
Yeah, like about the levels of it. No, they're usually way above. It's like you're a fucking nuclear biologist or something, or whatever it would be, that'd be the expert on Nandrolone or whatever.
Yeah, because literally I spent hours today researching it. I literally spent hours.
You were the first PhD scientist I've ever met who has a part-time job as an accountant.
You do. He says things with enough authority to convince you he's absolutely right, and maybe won't research it. That's his.
I actually have researched. I've actually researched it today for hours. That's why I like, and I've always been the one on the panel giving out about drugs the most and saying they're all on it, and holding us to account about drugs.
I'll tell you what, the research didn't help you much when you told us your prediction for the Lomachenko Rigondeaux fight.
Yeah, well, you can't research the future. You can only research the past. That's my defense.
Right, guys. Povetkin versus
the CIA.
And the CIA. Povetkin versus Christian Hammer. Potentially a relevant fight. Looks like it could well become the mandatory for AJ's WBA belt. So even if you don't like the fight, at some point we'll be discussing the winner against Anthony Joshua in a huge amount of detail. Povetkin starts as a huge favourite. Is anyone thinking it could be a good matchup?
No.
Easy work?
Do Hapas or whatever. For me, is a better fighter than Hammer, and Povetkin absolutely destroyed Dupar. I think it's easy work for Povetkin. Very easy work. I mean, what's Hammer done recently apart from beat up a?
He beat the big
Price.
Horrible heavyweight, David Price.
Yeah, who like after about 3 rounds looked like he was drunk. He was that fucking gassed. He was falling all over the fucking place.
No, that was Ty. That was Ty Fields.
I think
that was Ty Fields.
The Tony Thompson fights, Paul, looked worse than them.
Say again.
I think you must have missed the Tony Thompson fights. He looked even more drunk in them.
Yeah, no, I do remember, but he was definitely pretty fucked up in the Hammer fight as well. So I mean, I just don't rate it as a huge win for Hammer. I mean, anybody with the ability to go past about 5 or 6 rounds and with a tiny little bit of power could beat David Price.
Yeah. So no one's seeing an upset there then.
No.
That would be a bit of a fly in the Eddie Hearn ointment, wouldn't it, if Povetkin became the Anthony Joshua mandatory? I'll tell you that, like, all of the stuff around 50-50 splits with Wilder and 35 splits, that won't go down too well when Povetkin's promoter turns up to the purse bid and puts down 9 figures, so AJ has to go and fight in Russia.
Yeah, $1 billion.
Yeah, $1 billion for AJ to go to Russia. Like, let's see how Eddie Hearn manages that one.
He dropped the belt. He just dropped the belt, probably.
Well, I guess he actually could drop the belt. Actually, that is.
But AJ wouldn't, though. But AJ, if AJ's getting $25 million to go over there, you know, like, well, that's what. Vlad got something like $25 million in that one.
Yeah, but AJ got that to fight to Cam, mate. He's going to want a hell of a lot more to fight Povetkin in Russia.
I don't think he'd want to go to Russia, mate. If you listen to the way AJ talks in interviews and stuff, like, you know, when he's talking, this is usually regarding America, he's, you know, saying, you know, I think it's good that we're keeping it here. I think it's good that, you know, we're all getting boxing going here. He's very sort of like, no, we're good here type of thing. I don't think he wants to travel if he don't have to. And I don't think Russia would be too inviting Russia to fight Povetkin. I think, I think...
Imagine you got $100 million, though, lads. Imagine you got $100 million. Maybe on the fucking plane.
He's been thinking, yeah, I'd fight Kubrat Pulev in Dubai. Yeah, maybe I'd fight Deontay Wilder in Vegas.
Nigeria.
Under Povetkin in Moscow. Like, that was not on the top of his holiday list for 2018.
I hope it's on in the middle of fucking winter as well.
It'd be like Rocky Four, innit? Like Ivan Drago and.
Did anybody see that fight? What do you call the lightweight from Ghana? He's based in England. You know the one I'm on about? He fought Shafikov.
Richard
Comey. He fought Shafikov in a gym. Did anybody see that? There was literally like 25 people in a small room. And it was like a title eliminator. I'd like to see AJ versus Povetkin in like a gym, and it's like minus 42 degrees outside.
And it's full of all like Russian mafia guys. Each one of them's like worth fucking a couple of hundred oligarchs and, you know, fucking oil guys and that.
And the ring girls have no clothes on at all.
If AJ fought Povetkin tomorrow, I think I'd be riding with Povetkin, honestly.
It's a close fight, yeah. I think he could knock AJ out.
AJ wins that fight. I'm really not sure about it, you know. If you offered me Povetkin versus Wilder, Povetkin versus AJ, Povetkin versus Parker, it isn't completely impossible. Povetkin is the best one out there.
No, it's not. I don't think you can confidently pick anybody against Povetkin if you think he's only been beaten by Klitschko, and like Klitschko just leaned all over him in that fight. It was fucking ridiculous.
Klitschko showed a blueprint. You know what Klitschko did was kept distance, moved, jabbed, you know, held. The only fighter I can think of who could do that would be a peak Fury. I've never seen an AJ or a Wilder be able to be that, you know, able to close down an opponent on the inside or able to move like that. You know, Povetkin is a real danger, but he is 38 and he is very, very small for the modern heavyweight division, and he's not going to be getting better.
Is he 38?
Yeah, he's 38.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Mate, he fought Chris Bird 10 years ago. Crazy, isn't it?
Mad, yeah. I didn't think he was quite that old. He don't look that
old. Yeah, he's been like pro for like seriously like 12, 13, 14 years, something like that. Yeah. But yeah, Olympic gold medalist as well as Alexander Povetkin. But there you go. Right, guys. we've come to the end of our agenda. It's been an extended show today, but I've enjoyed parts of it. Let me go around the panel, see if anyone else has got anything further to add. Jet.
War Irish.
War Jet.
Paul.
Oracle Takeover.
Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thanks to everyone who's joined us from start to finish. Thanks to all the members of the panel, to Jet, to Paul, to Irish Tom. We covered a hell of a lot of ground in this show. It's been good. If you have been watching, please hit the thumbs up button. Please press subscribe if you haven't done so before. Jet also has a channel, which is the Boxing Discussions channel, so make sure you sub to that. And yeah, thanks for tuning in. With any luck, we'll be back next Wednesday at 8:30. Thanks very much indeed.
Viva Jay's
Happy Wednesday. Happy Wednesday. What's the band?